watching the broadcast and call the January 8th, 2019 regular meeting to order with all board members present. Mr. Beiser's wandering around someplace. And with that, I would like for us to do the Pledge of Allegiance. The Army JROTC Color Guard from San Diego High School will now present the colors. Please stand for the presentation of the colors.
Right, left, left, mark time, march, left, left turn, march, color guard, halt, colors, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carry, colors, right turn, march, forward, march, left, left, left.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. I would like a motion to adopt today's agenda with Section I, Superintendent's Consent Agenda, to be considered next following the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Beiser, seconded by Dr. Evans. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, we're going to vote. Please vote.
I vote.
5-0. Thank you. Today's meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting of the Board of Trustees that is conducted in public, and board members will not engage in a dialogue with members of the audience. The opportunities for members of the public to provide input to the board on non-agenda matters and items on the agenda is through the submittal of a public testimony request. The time periods for speakers on each item are set by the board as described in the board's bylaws and will be announced to the members of the public as each agenda item comes up for discussion by the board. If you wish to address the board on any of the agenda items before the board today, or on a subject that is not on today's agenda, and your name is not on the speaker list printed on the blue paper located at both entrances to the auditorium, and you have not already submitted a request for public testimony form, please complete the form and submit it to Marty Stoltz, Board Action Officer. Speaker forms are located at both entrances to the auditorium. All public testimony on non-agenda matters will be heard at the end of the meeting. Thank you. Does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda?
I move the consent agenda unless there are speaker slips.
Yes, you just received a speaker slip for I-28.
Yeah, and I moved it earlier.
Okay. Second.
So we'll remove I-28 from that list of items and everything else. We have a motion by Mr. Beiser and a second by Dr. Evans. All in favor of that motion, please vote. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Now, if we could move to item C1, which is an information item. Dr. Evans, we would like for you to introduce Dr. Jackson, who will introduce the children and the program from Hickman Elementary School.
Okay, we have some students from the Mira Mesa cluster from Hickman Elementary, and the area superintendent for the Mira Mesa cluster is Dr. Jackson, who can introduce the program.
Thank you, Board President Whitehurst-Payne, Vice President Evans, and Superintendent Martin. My pleasure to introduce the students of Hickman Elementary School. They will be presenting tonight on their school foundation. They are a Leader in Me school. Leader in Me is the foundational part of the Leader in Me program is around 7 habits that are really blended that focus on student voice and leadership. And so certainly proud to introduce Toby Pace, our principal at Hickman Elementary. However, since she believes in leaders and developing and promoting student voice, she is not going to present. However, I'm going to introduce Sky and Genevieve, 2 of our students, one 4th grade, one 5th grade, who will facilitate the presentation today from Hickman Elementary. So ladies, come on up. And you can use this mic if this is, you're tall enough, Scott, to stand here. There you go.
And I don't know if you know, but we are inviting you to join us because we have provided some snacks for you because we want to serve you how you serve us.
Is it all of them? Or do you want me to turn the page?
I think it's fine. We'll just do it.
Let's wait till they're all standing up.
Good evening, Superintendent Martin and our school board. My name is Genevieve Snyder, and I'm in 4th grade at Hickman Elementary. My friend Sky and I are thrilled to be your MCs for the next several minutes.
Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sky, and I am in 5th grade at Hickman. We are so honored to share our leadership story with you. One thing we celebrate is our differences. One of our murals on campus has a beautiful quote by Maya Angelou. It says, "We are more like my friends than we are different." We have really embraced our similarities and differences. We are all human learners with individualists. We speak over 28 languages. Our largest language groups are Vietnamese, Spanish, and Tagalog.
One thing that is very important to us as a learning community is that we have a clear common vision that we live by every day. Our school-wide mission statement is Live, Learn, Lead Together. One more time. Live, Learn, Lead Together. Each of us at Hickman believes that we are lifelong learners and leaders and we can make a difference in our world today.
Thank you, Genevieve. In addition to our school-wide mission statement, every student, teacher, and staff member each has an individual mission statement. My mission statement is to be a loyal leader and be helpful to my fellow classmates. I will be the best me. In order to follow this mission statement, we each set goals or WIGs. We call them our wildly important goal. We discuss our WIG progress with our accountability partners to grow in the specific goal area. My academic WIG is to increase my LCAP level 900 or higher. In my leadership notebook, I check my LCAP level every month. I read 8 to 10 Achieve articles per week. My personal goal is to run a mile in 10 minutes or less. In order to reach that WIG, I dedicated my time and persistence with that goal. I run every day as much as I can. I track my progress using a timer. My goal is to beat this by June 2019.
Thank you, Zoe. One of the ways we show that leadership is through our 20% projects. Every 5th grader at Hickman Elementary spends 20% of our school year working on a 20% project or passion project to make a difference in our world. I would like to introduce my classmate Adriana to share her passion project.
Good evening. My name is Adriana and my passion project is about healthy cooking. I realized that many kids have diseases that adults have. These unhealthy choices have affected their lives. I want to change that. My plan is to make tasty food that is usually unhealthy much better for you. Here's how I do it. Every week, I make a new dish that is usually not very healthy and turn it into something that is tasty and healthy for you. I serve it in the office so others can taste my dish and give me feedback to move forward. My favorite one that I made was a pumpkin spice donut. They were a hit. Overall, I'm learning to gather feedback and improve my art of cooking to make healthy dishes for all. In the future, I plan on being a professional chef, and I'm well on my way to that goal. Please enjoy my coffee lover chocolate donuts.
So what is all this 7 Habits stuff anyways? At Hickman, we are all leaders from TK to 5th grade, including our teachers, office staff, lunch servers, and custodians. We all value our unique qualities in all of us. Some of our Lighthouse leaders are going to share what the 7 habits mean to them. Aiden is a kindergartner at our school.
Hi, my name is Aiden Bro. I'm in kindergarten. The first habit is number 1, be proactive. I'm in charge of me. For example, I'll be cleaning my room up every day without my mom asking because I'm a responsible person. Hi everyone, my name is Mikey Angelo. I am in 1st grade at Hickman Elementary. I am here to present habit 2, which is to make a plan and then get my work done. I always try my best at school and help others. Our goal is to live, learn, lead together. Hi, my name is Serena, and I'm in 2nd grade. Habit 3 is put first thing first. I spend most of my time on doing things that are most important, like doing my homework, then I can play games. My name is Olivia Tran, and I am in 3rd grade. I speak English and Vietnamese. Chào con tên là Olivia Tran. I am in habit 4 is to think win-win. Everyone can win. I want everyone to be a success. I don't have to put others down to get what I want. When a conflict happens, I look for a third solution. I believe that we all can win.
My name is Michaela. I am in 4th grade. Habit 5 says to seek first to understand, then to be understood. Listen before you talk. I listen to other people's feelings and ideas. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should listen twice as much and really seek first to understand.
My name is Adriana, and I'm in 5th grade. Habit 6 is synergize. Together is better. We can all learn something from each other. Sometimes students disagree. We have to work together in a positive way to find a solution. Synergizing together is key.
The habit is my favorite. Number 7, sharpen the saw. Balance feels best. I take care of my body by exercising and getting sleep. And those are the 7 habits.
Thank you so much for giving us that overview. As leaders, we also have an amazing music program at our school. Please welcome Ashrith, Ethan, Elena, and Dylan, who will be playing one song they have learned at Hickman.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Every month, we have a student leadership assembly to celebrate our unique leadership successes. In conclusion, we would like to sing the song we sing as a Hickman family. Sit back and enjoy There's a Leader in Me.
habits now. And with these 7 habits, we'll show you how. You gotta be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. Put first things first. Think win-win every time. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Synergize with your friends, 'cause it's always better when we work together. Sharpen the saw, be the best me, so you can see there's a leader in me. There's a leader in me. I can lead myself, I can lead my friends, I can do anything. There's a leader in me. There's a leader in me. The 7 habits help me see there's a leader in me. There's a leader in me.
Thank you for allowing us to share a leadership story with you. Come visit us up in Mira Mesa Elementary School. Hickman Elementary School, sorry.
Are you on this?
Hey, how are you doing? Good to see you, sir. How are you doing?
Am I going to be the lucky one to sit next to you today?
Yes.
All righty.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Thank you. Wow. I would like to say thank you and congratulations to Hickman on a job well done. And you must know I have a sweet tooth for chocolate, so thank you, and the recipe looks healthy, so we'll follow through on that. John, did you want to say something else? Thank you to the children and to the staff members and parents from that community. Next, we will move on to item D1. Are there any reportable actions to report out from closed session at this time? Okay, none. For the administrative assignments, Superintendent Martin?
President Whitehurst, you had a speaker on D1.
I skipped that already. You're right. Thank you. On closed session, D1, we have a speaker on citizen. There she is.
Excuse me, I couldn't get in the door because everybody was trying to get out. The issue with closed session was resolved. My concern was that there wasn't a description of what the issue was on closed session, and it's very difficult to make a statement about something, whether you oppose or support it, if you don't have a description. But that was remedied, so thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, D2, Superintendent Martin.
Thank you, President Whitehurst Payne, and to your first board meeting as president. Management appointments for this evening, we have one program manager for teaching and learning, interscholastic athletics, ASB, physical education and health, Stacy Siders.
Thank you. Now we will move to item D3. And it's my pleasure to acknowledge our ASB presidents today. It just so happens you're from Crawford, which is one of my schools, and I was at your school before the holidays and saw you there, so now welcome. She's here.
Thank you so much for having me here. To introduce myself, my name is Huda Ahmed. I am a senior at Crawford High School, and I'm also the ASB president of our ASB at Crawford. This school year, we began with many wonderful events for our students, but Crawford High School this year have gone through a very dramatic change involving our class schedule. This year, instead of having a 4x4 by semester, we have 8x8 classes. So for ASB presidents, previously, they'd only have to take care of one ASB class, but this year we have 2 separate ASBs with 36 different sets of students in each. So that has been proved to be a difficult challenge in the beginning of the school year. However, by establishing formal communication and making sure that each ASB class is on the same page and dividing responsibilities between each class so that we understand what each class is working on, I've been able to at least assess the situation and alter it so it would no longer be a challenge. In the beginning of the school year, we have done many events, such as our very first Kindness Week, where we promoted every single student at our school to bring a positive atmosphere during the week. One day that we did during our Kindness Week, we made a 20-foot-long poster where we had almost every student in our school write a positive message on a little red heart, and we put it on top of our second-story building for the whole school to see, and it was a very beautiful poster, and hopefully that gets continued through each year. One thing that we're planning is our festivals. So we had Harvest Festival, which is a great way for our clubs to fundraise more money, and they sell student-made items in a ticketing system for clubs to raise more money. And right now we're planning a festival in February known as Love Fest. It has a Valentine's Day theme, and we're coming up with International Fair, which celebrates the everlasting diversity at our school, happening in May. And one more thing is my goal as ASB president for Crawford is to elevate our ASB to new heights it hasn't reached before, because I noticed that despite having a totally different ASB from our previous years, it could also make room for improvement despite normalizing it for what it was in the past years. So what I've learned is by altering the situation of any conflict, I could resolve it easily. And that's all.
Thank you. Wonderful report. Very well done. And our old friend over here, Jerry Yang.
Well, good evening. Thank you again for providing me an opportunity to continue updating the board on the endeavors of the President's Council as well as Scripps Ranch High School. So pertaining to the San Diego Unified School District's President's Council, a district-wide leadership event just took place on December 20th of last year. It was the 2018 Winter Workshop, in which we had some various games and activities that students can kind of take in and integrate into their school, whether it be a rally or a lunchtime activity, so that they can better the school spirit, because that has always been a concern in several schools, as presidents have brought that up during our council meeting, which our next one is actually tomorrow. So I will update you on that next month. Furthermore, the council is in the process of planning our next event. It's probably going to take place sometime in March or April, and I will update you on the event, as it has not currently been approved, but it's going to be pretty great. Pertaining to Scripps Ranch High School, students just returned from a 2-week winter break. So previously, however, a successful school rally took place, with various lunchtime activities and spirit days in session. In addition, the theme and place of our next high school dance was revealed to the wondrous applause of the crowd. It's going to be at Birch Aquarium, and the theme is Lost at Sea, and students are looking forward to that. In addition to that, I didn't make a note of this in my little preparation here, but our ROTC actually fundraised 22,000 pounds in our food drive. So hopefully that should be enough. I think it might be enough for the MLK food drive competition, but we will see. All right, well, on that note, my report is finalized. Thank you so much for providing this time.
Thanks to both of you for your reports. I mean, we really like to hear what's going on at the schools, and you've done an excellent job of providing us with that information. Now let's move on to item D4 and the superintendent's report.
Thank you. So in San Diego, you all know that our schools have continued to set the standard for large urban school districts and doing innovative things. And I wanted to tell you tonight about something next week that's happening. We're going to be hosting nearly 200 educational leaders from across the country and actually from some outside of the country for our first PopCon convention. PopCon is a convention. These people are coming from all corners of the country to see how we at San Diego Unified use the power of partnerships and pathways to provide the rigorous education, world-class education for our students, and letting other educators from across the world come and learn about this. It's an unconventional convention. There's people in our audience today that have helped put this conference together. We're really proud of it. It's a unique event that's going to showcase our vision in San Diego Unified for college and career pathways and for community partnerships. The attendees will have the opportunities to go into classrooms where the next level learning is taking place every single day, and there'll be deep dive experiences that folks that are coming to see how San Diego Unified gets the job done for students will get to experience. So as superintendent and actually as a San Diegan, I'm really proud to add this to the list of ways that our schools are being recognized on a national stage, and thank you to our team for putting together such a great event coming up next week.
Thank you. And now we will move to item D5, our board information reports. And we'll start on my left with Dr. Mike.
Just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. Ready to get started. We got a lot of work to do. We've learned a lot from last year. I want to take the opportunity to identify the challenges as we go forward, to address those, to be successful, be collaborative, be transformative. We need to be transparent, hold each other accountable. We have a lot of work to do. We're doing some great things. They're being recognized statewide and nationally, and I want to continue that good work, and I'm ready to go to work.
Skip. Okay, Mr. Barrera. Mr. Beiser. Dr.
Also, Happy New Year 2019. I was just noticing that couple of the smaller persons, one is from the class of 2030, another from the class of 2031, the smallest one. And when we talking about Vision 2030 this year, they were talking about the future is now, and we're not talking about what's going to happen in 2030. We're talking about what's happening right now with the class of 2030 as they progress through our system. So that's really exciting planning that we're going to be doing this year.
And I just would like to say welcome back to the new year. I know it's different having me here rather than Mr. Beiser, but we're looking forward to a really wonderful year, doing some new and different things and moving things forward. You'll see what I've been doing over the holidays, working on a video and other things to just kind of inform everybody about what's going on in the district and how we're relating to schools, etc. So I want to say welcome and thank you for supporting the schools throughout the year, not just now, but throughout the year, because without you, without the children, we would not be a district, and we would not be making some of the inroads that we've been talking about. So thank you and welcome. And having said that, let us move forward to item E1, and I believe we're taking E1 and E2 together. So,
I'll move item E1 and 2.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Mr. Bison, or second by Dr. McCrary. And at this point, we'll have the superintendent and her staff to present it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. I've asked to read these two items together, E1 and E2. The first one is the Title I eligibility ranking for San Diego Unified, which is a yearly item where we approve the Title I ranking eligibility, and we distribute a certain amount of funds. It's $15.5 million to schools based on the percentage of free and reduced lunch. So that's what E1 is. It's the same item that it is every year. I am not recommending any change to the way we allocate on item E1. However, I've asked to do these together because item E2 is Title I supplemental funding, and I want to describe what that is and take these both forward for action tonight, and I'm going to go into more detail about what E2 is. This is based on feedback and a needs assessment that we put this together. We're bringing forward this plan to put more funding out into our schools to have them make decisions, placing trust in our schools to make the decisions that are best for the individual students that they serve with this supplemental funding. This plan is going to allow for the local decision-making at school sites, personalized resources, and individualized attention to students at schools within a framework that's going to allow for each school to be a highly reliable school and to achieve their goals as they've written into their school plans, strategic plans. As you know, this is the first year that we're taking this approach, and we want our schools to have the latitude that they need to use these funds in the ways that will best serve their students for high reliability schools and align to their strategic plans. So once the schools, after action tonight, once the schools have access to the funds and make their decisions, then we're going to analyze and we'll see how that went. We'll put supports in place and parameters around how to use these funds for students' best interest. This supplemental approach is building upon the last 6 years of instructional focus and the capacity building that we've been leading across all of our campuses. And we're able to work with school site councils who receive supports and guidelines from their area superintendents, the district finance team, and HR staff to help empower them to make the decisions how to use these supplemental funds in the model that we're representing today. It is a new model for the system, so we're asking you to take action tonight to give sites the opportunity to take action and move forward with their regular Title I and their supplemental Title I funds and work across their community to plan for action for their site-based budgeting workshops that will open in late January. You can see the amount that we're doing by school and how we've decided on those specific dollar amounts, but that's how these two items have been joined together for action tonight in Title I. And as a former principal of a Title I school, I know very specifically what I would do as a principal receiving funds like this to be able to make allocation decisions in the best interest of my students. And school by school, you'll see there's great benefit. It's still consistent with our 40% Title I and above, and looking at specific areas of need in how we decided what these allocations would be.
Thank you. We have speakers on E1 and E2. Mrs. Francine Maxwell for E1, 3 minutes, and then E2, Mrs. Maxwell also, and Susie Reed.
The allocations are wonderful, as they always are, but once again, money has never been an issue in District E. It's the lack of staffing that have the will and the skill. I want to make sure that the record continues to reflect that there's no accountability in this district. There's no accountability, for example, in mental health. The supports that are on the high schools are wonderful, but who's overseeing the providers? I sat in an SSC meeting where they tried to do the bait and switch. They asked for a dean of students 1 month with the Title I money. They got told no, so they came back and renamed it cultural something. It was still a dean of students. They want to purchase an attendance clerk. No one knows the mental health providers, what's on their caseload, who's monitoring. This money would be well spent if the campus had supports that were being held accountable. We are short-staffed. There's 4 and 5 people doing things. So if we have all this extra money that somebody is hiding, I think that it's time that we put boots on the ground at the campus, at the high school to monitor this. Mental health, we all know that if we don't hurry up and clamp on this with our partners at the county, with our partners at the city, money is not the issue. We have money. It's just that we don't have the people that have the will and the skill. We have a lot of money, and it's a wonderful thing that the allocation, it didn't change, but once again, the word for 2019 is accountability.
Thank you. E2. Susie Reed.
Good evening, everyone. So this is kind of a precursor. My name is Susie Reed. I'll be talking a little bit later, but I did want to just, and I am kind of echoing what Ms. Maxwell said. I appreciate and really admire the work that went into this, because I think that's what the DAC and SSCs have been saying for a long time. We want more money back at the school site and more local control. But with that also comes the need for some skilled SSC people. And I have a lot of people who come to meetings continually saying, we aren't getting enough training. Where was the training? Where is that happening? Communication is not happening from point A to point B, and so we need to figure out what's wrong, what's happening in the middle that's not making sure that parents get the information they need in order to make good decisions when they're sitting on that school site council. This is supposed to be shared decision making, and we can't share decisions unless parents are actually educated and informed on what they're supposed to be doing. And it's not just parents, it's staff. I know a lot of staff who are like, oh, I'm on SSC this year, I've been on it before. We go, we say yes, and then we leave. And so I don't know that everybody exactly knows what they're supposed to be doing. So if we're going to put more money back at the school sites, I definitely want to see more support for our school site councils. And if we're able to pull $8.2 million out of the central Title I budget to give back to schools, I hope we can find some money to support the Financial Planning, Monitoring, and Accountability Office that only has 2 people to support 180 schools. I don't even want to ask them how they do that, because I know they're stretched. And so if we can put more money into that and provide proper supports for the schools so we can have the proper collaboration and that shared decision making that we want to see happen, and that I know can happen because I see it happen in certain school sites, but if we can get that support for the schools, I would be even happier. So I look forward to seeing what that plan is as well. Thanks.
Thank you. We will now go. Anybody else?
Board member?
Excuse me, are there any board members who'd like to speak?
Okay.
Let's make voice ready.
That's right. Thanks, President Whitehurst-Payne. Yeah, I just want to thank the superintendent and your leadership team. I know that this is a big step, in the district's efforts to achieve equity, for all students. And I know that with the work that's been happening over the last several years, there's a high degree of confidence in our leadership at the school sites, in their ability to identify the needs that are most pressing and that will have the most impact on students who need that extra support, which is what Title I is intended for. So, and I also understand and appreciate that the move in this direction will include a high degree of communication between the school sites and the central office, including a high degree of collaboration about what we've seen over the past few years that has had the most impact. President Whitehurst-Payne and I had the chance to visit with some of the FAE teachers as they were completing a coaching cycle. And, it was very clear that what they were expressing was, consistent with what we've heard, with all of the schools that have gone through the student-centered coaching cycles, which was, tremendous impact with the students, including students that, had been identified as the most challenging students in a teacher's classroom. In fact, President Whitehurst-Payne, by the end of the, conversation, said to the teachers at FAE, the fact that the work that you're doing is so clearly having such positive impact leaves us in a position as a board, which is to say, how can we not have this happen everywhere? The fact that we know that this is the right thing to do makes us even more, have a sense of urgency about making sure that, students everywhere have access to this kind of work. And so we anticipate that that kind of collaboration and communication between the school sites, what's been working for them with the support of the central office, And now, as the school sites move into their own decision making, that kind of communication and support is going to continue. So we're really excited, to see from the schools what they're going to come back with, and especially, what the outcomes for students are going to be that come from these strategies.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate what the speaker said about accountability and support in terms of the use of this money. I know in the past sometimes there's been questions about how do we measure the results from the Title I funds, which is very complicated because if it's a comprehensive academic program, how do you isolate and say this one particular thing did? A few programs do. I remember once there was a program at Mira Mesa High School that was helping students who were having difficulty with math, and they were put in this special program, and they progressed much more rapidly than they were before. But Title I programs in general are school-wide programs, and so it's one element of many elements. And so I just want to ask the superintendent if you could explain a little bit about sort of the accountability and support process, because there's mention about parents and others on the school site committee, and we don't want people just coming in and someone says, okay, this is what we're going to spend the money on, you need to sign this paper and we're going to vote. I mean, they certainly need to be informed on what they're voting on, but actually really participants in the whole process. And the only way to do that is to say, this is the big picture of what we're trying to accomplish in this school, and now how are we going to use this resource to do it, as opposed to, here's some money, what are some ideas on how to spend it? I mean, it really needs to be integrated, and it's going to be very different every school, but there is a legitimate concern in terms of what has been done to make sure that this is a really thoughtful process.
That's why I said in my opening that we're asking principals to allocate and look for ways to spend this money related to high reliability schools, which is studies that the principals have done over years now about the characteristics and qualities of high reliability schools, and then they've built their strategic plans based on that research. And so a strategic plan is already in place that's been developed over a number of years using the process involving the entire staff. So when you spend money, it's not, oh, here's new money. I always said as a principal that when money would come and money would go, you already know what you're planning to do. And if more money comes, you don't make up a new goal. You are focused on your goals through your strategic plan. So area superintendents were asking to help monitor this work because they help lead and guide the principals to write their strategic plans. So any dollar that's spent or allocated is going to be aligned to the high reliability schools implementation and their strategic plans, which then gets aligned to the LCAP goals and everything that we're doing that have measurable outcomes that go with them.
And so let's say that I'm a parent and I volunteer and sign up to be on the school site committee. What should I expect? I'm a parent. Let's say I don't really have a formal background in pedagogy and all of this. So, what is it? I mean, I don't think it's just listen to the principal and whatever you say.
School site council should be run in a way where there's a collaborative conversation, there's a dialogue. Principals can come in with the plan. The strategic plan should be known by all stakeholders, and at the SSC, people are understanding what is it that we're trying to accomplish, how are we going to accomplish it, and a parent participant versus a teacher participant who's ever part of the SSC is well versed in what the goals are of the school and how the dollars that they get will be allocated to accomplish those goals. And that's the ongoing process that should happen at the SSC and the kinds of conversations that happen amongst that collaborative decision-making body.
So when there's reference to training for parent members of the SSC, what does that mean? Because each school has a different sort of focus.
And I think there's schools that are at different stages in their SSC development. Some are newer SSCs that haven't done anything before. They're brand new, put together. Then we can provide support through our program monitoring and accountability with additional training if they're new. If it's a more well-established SSC, their level of training is different. This is a new funding mechanism, so we want to make sure that they have all the tools and resources and supports that we'll be providing them after tonight's action.
Okay. Thank you.
Just related to that same item, unless some of the others want to dialogue about it. it's good to have the plan and all of that, but how do we know for a fact that that's being shared and folks are going through it, they understand what's in that plan? Then we had talked earlier about whether or not the site chairs are going to the district DACs, and we talked about it. I think I had a conversation with Dr. Ottinger about ways that we can get some of that work or that training.
Using technology.
Yes. Couldn't it happen at a cluster site within the cluster area so that all those cluster chairs would come together at a site, and then you could use video or whatever, Skyping or whatever folks use now.
Zoom meetings.
Face meeting or FaceTime or some device, some tool, so that they could tap into what's going on at the general meeting and get to vote on these items when they come forward, would know and understand, and hopefully that kind of training is going on at the DAC meeting also to help folk to really know. Because I think what we've been saying with our instruction now is that it's not good enough for things to just be presented without knowing
Real
whether or not,
engagement.
yes, whether or
And
not,
accountability.
exactly.
I know Tom might want to say a couple things about, Tom Liberto or Dr. Ottinger, about what we're doing for this engagement, because that's happened before, these conversations around how do we expand engagement, either using technology or using, Tom was talking about getting transportation, so one of the big barriers that we've heard to people coming to the DAC meeting was transportation, so we're exploring what those options would be. And for us, training isn't just come to us. We can customize what's needed. Like I said, if it's a newer SSC and they need support, Tom, you can talk about how you go out to support them. I don't know if you have an example you'd like to give.
So thank you, Dr. and President Whitehurst Payne. Tom is here, and just in reference to some of the statements around, and Tom can give the details, where we are in terms of we're focused on increasing that engagement. The technology piece, we're working through understanding, ensuring that the rules and guidelines in terms of who creates a vote, who casts a vote, where they are physically present versus, so we are investigating those items to see how we can make that work. In the meantime, we didn't want to stop progress, so we are actually working, Tom, and he can speak to that along with the training pieces that he's working diligently on. We're organizing with transportation to start with some key schools to make sure that we can, at the, say, provide transportation to parents from the feeder schools who can then make it easier for folks to attend these meetings by providing transportation. And we're starting with some proof of concepts with some key schools that Tom can speak to. He's really been leading those efforts.
Good evening. Dr. Ottinger summarized it very, very well. We are actively working with transportation to have buses go to some of our high schools, San Diego High School, Crawford, Sarah, the list goes on, to bring people from the cluster to the Ballard Center. Again, that's a stopgap measure because we are also working with the IT department on the satellite type meetings. But what we've found on, I guess, the legal end and through the board office is that voting becomes very problematic, and that's a very big system to have to do electronically. So again, as Dr. Ottinger has said, we're going to try and bring people in through the transportation, and we're actually working with them on getting quotes and pricing and schedules as we speak. And we're still working on the back end piece to hopefully very soon get the satellite meetings going electronically.
How does a large school district like Los Angeles Unified have a DAC meeting?
That's a very good question that I will look into tomorrow, I promise you.
Yeah.
I think for me, thank you before you leave, I think that we've identified two levels of training. One is the level of training that the chairs need via the DACs and so forth, but then the second level is what the superintendent is talking about. How does it then get translated to the site?
At the tables.
So that it's actualized. It's not just a discussion or a meeting you went to and nothing follows through from that. But then what's happening at the site. So it's got to be coordinated with the principals at least to know that this chair is going to be, first of all, informed, knowledgeable, and then how they can work together more collaboratively to get things done that will benefit the children.
And that's definitely a piece that we need to continue to work on and build. I do want to say that our department and our team has provided a lot of training this year. The opportunities have been there, at least 6, some of which where they've actually held them at high schools around the cluster. And unfortunately, wherever that breakdown was, we didn't get very many people coming. In some instances, 1 or 2 showed up for the training. So it hasn't been a lack of training offered, but for some reason, which we are responsible for figuring out why they're not coming, but we're committed to continuing to provide the training.
And this opportunity tonight that we're discussing is definitely going to put a spotlight on it, and when you have additional resources, and in some cases significant, our area superintendents will be leading, and just do a check on the training of your SSC. Have they had a training recently? Tom's team is ready to add additional trainings, and I think a spotlight on additional resources is just an opportunity to say, hey, get a refresher. Make sure you're well-versed in how to go about this. Make it tied to your strategic plan. Make it tied to the goals that you've already developed for your school, and we can support that.
Superintendent, so although I'm not completely well-versed on this notion, as this is one of the first few times in which I was introduced, how exactly are these trainings publicized, and are they mandatory for every chair in the school?
Tom can answer that.
So we have the team that Ms. Reed spoke about, the 2 resource teachers, which are responsible for the whole district. They not only email the principals, but they email each of the SSC members. So we have a roster with emails. We can contact them via email. We send out the dates and encourage them to come that way.
So is it currently mandatory, though?
I would like to say it's mandatory, but I'm not sure how we could really enforce that. They also have postings on the DAC website, which I believe is part of this board item. There's a reference to it somewhere in there. We would hope that SSC members would every once in a while go to that DAC website and see the trainings that are offered. But in addition to that, to answer your question, we do push them out via email to the site principal and each SSC member.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are engaged. It's good. I just think, not to beat a dead horse, that we just need to figure out ways, because 1 or 2 people, obviously, unacceptable. So we've got to figure out how we can make it work for the students. And if it's not email or I mean, maybe snail mail or whatever it is that works for different people, we can figure that part of it out too. Okay? Thank you all for your report. We have the item on the table. We have a motion already. Please vote on it.
Both items.
Thank you. That's 5-0.
Is that on both items, E1 and 2?
The motion was on both items.
Then if
It's on both, okay.
That's on both items. Thank you.
I would just like to add and commend the superintendent and our team for taking the challenge. I believe the supplemental grant going from the district to the school came out of our board recommendation to the superintendent. Take a look at how we can provide more funding at the local level to create more local control, site control, and this was the outcome. And we're excited about the opportunity it gives for our local school sites to make local decisions about how they best can spend the money within the LCAP and meet the needs of our targeted students in the best way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to see what our schools come up with.
Well, that's good. Thank you. We will now hear item E3, the graduation strategies implementation. This is a follow-up to the July 24th, 2018 report of the Board Select Committee on graduation standards and strategies. Superintendent Martin, would you please present this
Thank you,
item
President
to us?
Whitehurst-Payne. I have Area Superintendent Dr. Freire and Cheryl Hiblin coming to join me with maybe one more chair brought up to help present this report. It is the follow-up to the grad strategies implementation. On July 24th, you all received the report from the committee that you commissioned to study our graduation standards and strategies. That Board Select Committee then came up with some recommendations, and now we'll have staff present what our findings are and what our next steps, not our findings. They had the findings, we have the next steps.
Tonight, Sophia and I have been asked to provide a follow-up to the graduation strategies report presented in July. I'm going to begin with background information. Sophia will provide work in progress, and I will share our recommendations moving forward. From fall 2017 to spring 2018, San Diego Unified convened a group of community stakeholders after a request from the Board of Education to answer the following questions. How does the district improve the graduation system overall? How does the district help students who are thinking about leaving? How does the district help students to prepare at a younger age? And how does the district help students who are struggling to catch up? After a year of engagement with this committee, the following recommendations were made, and these are sort of the high-level recommendations. There were pages and pages of them, but the first one was they asked us to think about providing a meaningful graduation. And what that meant to the committee was that we would look at our grading practices and align them to mastery, that we would set our expectations for our graduates beyond state minimums, and that's an interesting bullet that we'll talk about in our recommendations, that we would provide professional development to teachers and principals that reinforce the things we believe in, like collaboration, subject grade mastery, and the needs of diverse learners. The second goal that they asked us to focus on, and this is one that isn't necessarily reported out year to year, is this idea of decreasing the number of students that are leaving our schools for other options. And what they asked us to do in this was they wanted us to report annually who's leaving, when they're leaving, where they're going, and possibly why they're going. And the why would be through an exit interview process that we would put in place to find out. They also asked us to increase the supports around students that were coming up on the early warning system, which we have built. The third recommendation that they made was that we should identify at-risk students no later than grade 3. And this particular recommendation was right in line with research we had looked at around the leaky pipeline, that we could literally tell who was going to leave us for charters, who was going to leave us for, who was going to drop out, and who might not graduate for a variety of reasons based on their math and English standardized test score. And so what they asked us to do is to start tracking at the elementary level students who are at risk and intervene not with just the credit recovery that we do in the high schools, but to recover those credits or those mastery skills in the grade level that they weren't earned, or in the summer perhaps of where they weren't earned. They asked us to look at our interventions and actually track whether they were successful or not just putting interventions down, but are those interventions actually successful? They asked us to help parents understand how to support kids to track their academic success. They asked us to make public when we report out on our data that the charter schools are not in our graduation reporting data, and that we should build a closer relationship with where our kids are headed, because those are still our kids when they go to the charter schools. They asked us to measure and track academic success beyond graduation to see if kids were persisting when they left us. And finally, they asked us to work with our higher education and community colleges to pilot readiness metrics, and we're already kind of doing that through our legacy program. The final bucketed recommendation that they made was to expand credit recovery efforts. And this is going to be important when we make our recommendations, because they don't mean credit recovery on edgenuity. They mean this backward mapping of requisite skills, and what do you do in each grade level when the students don't meet a particular skill that needs to be mastered in that grade level. They asked us to develop and evaluate specific interventions in every grade level, and they asked us to pay close attention to at-risk groups, especially those who were chronically absent, students with disabilities, English learners, and other groups who have historically in our district had trouble or had more struggles meeting graduation. Sophia is now going to highlight our current instructional efforts towards these goals.
So as Cheryl said, I'm going to both highlight what's in progress and some steps that we've actually already taken. I'd like to start with presenting this meaningful graduation indicators pyramid, because it highlights a lot of the work that we've done. We launched this pyramid 2 years ago, and the unique thing about this is that we launched it with all principals. It wasn't a conversation just with high school principals. When you talk about graduation, usually it's a conversation just with high schools. And so we launched this, this pyramid and these metrics and led a conversation with all principals around meaningful graduation. The pyramid, as you can see, starts at the bottom with the base really being about monitoring student wellness. The next level highlights student learning, and it's followed by metrics for measuring both access for rigorous coursework through the master schedule, but also what supports are in place to ensure that students actually have success in those rigorous courses. As part of this learning, we made a huge distinction between graduation and meaningful graduation. So we weren't content with the fact that we had a high graduation rate. We were really looking at what does that mean for our kids and how does that ensure post-secondary success for the students that are crossing that stage in June. This led us to conversations around the leaky pipeline. And when we actually led this meeting, for me, it was like the image will never go away, because what we did is we actually had rosters of students for elementary school at 3rd grade of students who were not reading at grade level. And that was so impactful for principals that they spent so much time going over to the wall and looking at names of students. Like, we're not talking about numbers and percentages, actually names of students who could potentially, we know now, could potentially not graduate years down the line because they're not at grade level. And so we engaged in that conversation 2 years ago. What resulted from these conversations and this learning with principals was really an awareness. Well, first of all, was an awareness and the value of social emotional learning. That has to be foundational, and we need to ensure that we have supports in place to ensure that students are getting the supports that they need. Second to that is that this on track to graduation conversation isn't one that we're just having with high schools. Now it's a conversation where we're going to start to measure on trackness starting at kinder and TK, and to be honest, even before that. And it also, if you look at what wraps the pyramid, you could actually see that this is embedded in our strong equity work around each and every. And so when we're looking at data pieces, we're asking the question, what does this mean for race and ethnicity, and which students are underperforming based on race and ethnicity? The same for gender. When are girls outperforming boys, or vice versa? And then we're also looking at other designations such as English language learners or students with disabilities. We focused on 3 primary priority areas that are aligned to the recommendations of the committee. The first one was strengthening Tier 1 instruction, and that was really around mastery. The next one was supporting schools in the development of strategic plans, and Superintendent Martin actually just mentioned our strategic plans. And then the third one was strengthening teacher collaboration, and Cheryl mentioned that in terms of her recommendation, this strong focus on increasing teacher collaboration, because that's the only way you're going to strengthen Tier 1 instruction. In an effort to strengthen Tier 1 instruction, we partnered with Marzano Research around high reliability schools. Superintendent Martin also mentioned that earlier. And we focused on these 3 levels. We focused on guaranteed viable curriculum, effective teaching in every classroom, and safe, collaborative, and we added the word inclusive classroom culture. The work around guaranteed and viable curriculum actually started with standards. You can't talk about mastery without talking about standards, and so we partnered with Marzano to actually create priority standards. We clustered them because we know that standards are never taught in isolation. They're taught as clusters, and then we created proficiency skills. What does it mean to master, and what prerequisite skills do students need to be able to demonstrate mastery of the standards? This led to work around common units of study and common assessments. The next level was effective teaching in every classroom. We've asked every school to identify 3 to 5 instructional practices that we should be able to see in every classroom at their site. And then the last layer is around safe and collaborative and inclusive culture. We want every student to feel safe, welcome, wanted, and successful in their classrooms. The connections that I can make to the recommendations are basically around the GVC is really about mastery. Effective teaching in every classroom is about early intervention, because our belief is that intervention doesn't happen outside of the classroom. It has to happen within the context of the classroom. And finally, the safe and collaborative and inclusive culture is really going to impact our leaver data. If kids feel like they have a space at the school and they are welcome in the classroom, they're less likely to leave us for other options. Cindy talked about our strategic plans, and in May, May and late in the school last year, we asked principals to engage in a deep dive around their data. And it wasn't just their performance metrics. We asked them to look at their attendance data, their suspension data, their leaver data, and actually do a deep dive into their data and conduct what we called a root cause analysis. And so we said, don't just look at numbers, get proximate to this data, spend time in classrooms, ensure that you're triangulating the data and you're looking at it very closely. So principals did a data dive, they did a root cause analysis, and based on this data, they created action plans and strategic plans. When we compared their focus areas, the one other thing I wanted to mention about that is they also created measurable goals. And so every school has a strategic plan that has measurable goals that we will be, as area superintendents, assessing at the end of this school year. When we looked at the priority areas or the focus areas that they determined in their strategic plans, we saw a great alignment with the 3 areas in Marzano. And so I'm not sure if you could read these numbers, but 48% of district-wide strategic plans focused on monitoring student learning, 60% focused on guaranteed viable curriculum, 42% focused on instruction or improving Tier 1 instruction, and 29% focused on culture. We didn't direct them in these areas. This is something that was derived from their root cause analysis and their deep data dive. So it was nice to see that alignment. The next focus area was around strengthening teacher collaboration, and we do that through strengthening or creating high-performing or high-functioning PLCs. And it's really about creating coherence in what we're calling mastery. And the key word here for us was the idea of common. We wanted school teams to develop common curriculum or units of study, common assessments, how are they going to assess mastery, and then common instructional strategies for meeting the needs of struggling students. So the key word there was common, and teacher collaboration, of course. We focused in a lot on assessments, and so this year, this is the focus for this year. And so when we are having conversations and leading professional learning for our principals around assessment, we launched this idea of continuum of assessments. And sometimes we have a misconception about what assessments mean, and we wanted principals to understand that it means state assessments, but it also means minute-by-minute assessments in the classrooms when teachers are checking for understanding. And so we will continue conversations and learning around what does it mean to assess minute by minute, daily, weekly, by unit, quarterly, and annually. This is going to help us with our DNF data. This is going to help launch our work around competency-based grading. So this assessment piece is a big piece for us, and actually our equity ambassadors and the students that we're hearing from would really feel like this is an important priority for us. And finally, beyond professional development for principals, we've also launched a study of math instruction district-wide. And so we focused on what we're calling assessment, curriculum, and instruction. And usually when people say those three words together, they start with curriculum. We want to change that because we feel like we have to start with assessment. Assessment is the roadmap to rigor. It actually is what determines mastery. And so we want to ensure that principals understand that we'd like them to start with this idea of assessment. What else did I want to say about this? So as part of this study, what we want to do is to ensure that principals understand that assessment is the destination and it's where we want students to go. And assessments also help us understand where students are along the way toward that destination. We've also used the analogy that curriculum is like the vehicle. That's what they use to drive to get to the destination. And once teachers have a destination that's determined and they have a reliable vehicle, like a reliable, valid curriculum, they can then focus on how am I going to teach what I need to teach for my students. As part of this study, Cheryl, Genevieve Clark, and myself have conducted classroom observations. We've been in over 100 math classrooms. We've probably seen every math classroom at the high school level. We've also conducted some observations at middle schools. Additionally to that, every student in IM1 and IM2 has taken a baseline assessment. Those assessments are in the process of currently being graded or analyzed. And we also have 4 middle schools that were part of this process. We've launched this work in high school. It's starting to trickle down to middle school, and it'll eventually come down to looking at what does math instruction look like at the elementary level. With that, I'll turn it over to Cheryl.
So in terms of next steps, we believe what the A to G committee really was asking us to do was move from good to great. And so what is it going to take to move from a good district to a great district? One of the things that not only the A to G committee talked about, but the work that we're doing in NISL together as a leadership team, society's changing. And that's driving a need for change in our own business. And these changes are impacting the type of student that we have to have prepared for the future and the readiness they need for the future that's going to move much faster than any future that we have experienced already. So the recommendations that we're making is we need to make a guarantee to the community. We need to guarantee the community that we are going to do certain things to ensure graduation, meaningful graduation. And those, we want to guarantee that our graduates are ready for life, work, and citizenship. And we think that we should do this through building credibility, coherence, and community around a system that ensures that whatever we set as that North Star, that thing that everybody is entitled to and everyone deserves, and we're going to reach everyone and get everyone there, we think we should do this through a graduate profile. So one of the things that we wanted to recommend is that our Vision 2030 might focus on backward mapping the system exactly the way that the A to G committee recommended, so that we can be specific about the cognitive, personal, and interpersonal competencies that we are going to guarantee for all of our graduates. And so if you think about this in dimensions, when we think about graduation, it's sort of one-dimensional, the academic side of it. You know, you meet the standards, you meet the Common Core. And then when you think about it in a two-dimensional piece, you might think, okay, well, the essential skills, the soft skills, and the standards. But if you think of it in a multi-dimensional way, that brings in the social emotional learning. And if we think about that in terms of competencies, and these are just a few examples of what those competencies might look like in the different buckets, but the cognitive competencies that our community might decide to benchmark would be content mastery, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, innovation. The personal might be flexibility, adaptivity, initiative, self-direction. The interpersonal might be social and cross-cultural skills, empathy, entrepreneurship, communication. And so if you look at the buckets at the bottom, the cognitive skills are essential for success in the 21st century, the personal skills are essential to empower kids in this world, and the interpersonal are essential so that they can collaborate in this new space. So this next image sort of shows how this backbone might be built with our community, and it'll take a tremendous amount of engagement to do this, but the A to G committee talked about the fact that this isn't just a vertical pathway, it's horizontal. So if you are off track in month 1 of TK, something has to happen. We can't find out about that 9th grade and put you in Edgenuity and get you to the end of the pathway. We have to start working on the interventions horizontally while we're still aiming north vertically. Something I wanted to share is in our initial reading, they at Harvard did a study on Montgomery Public Schools, and what I thought was really interesting about the way that they organized their North Star, because they don't call it a graduation profile, but they call it a North Star, is that they went through the process of deciding what they wanted their graduates to be, but then they held themselves accountable, and I about fell out of my chair. Their goal for every student in Montgomery County Public Schools was a 1650 on the SAT and a 24 on the ACT. So basically the ability to get into college. And what was amazing about this was, did everybody score a 1650 on the SAT? No. But by setting that target, it changed what you did in kindergarten. And so in kindergarten, they had to have advanced readers by the end of 2nd grade, and their kindergartners had to read by the end of kindergarten. So it really changed the way that they set the pipeline by setting their targets high. And then in terms of collaboration, the research around a graduate profile, you have to include everyone in this process, your communities of faith, your business leaders. We actually started to test this a little bit with our Qualcomm convening to see what the Qualcomm business partner convening, what they would say the essential skills would be, and we collected all that information so we could add it into this process. But higher ed, community members, social service agencies, teachers, families, like everyone needs to be involved in thinking through this backbone and pipeline. And so finally, the goals that we would set is create this vision for a 21st century education, provide a framework for backward design units that integrate interdisciplinary. That's what we want to see, is that the content areas are connected. I'm glad to see a student shaking their head. I'm so happy we've reached you. Got one of you. Okay. And then measure what matters. And that's a lot of different things. So that means real performance-based competencies that kids need to be successful in life, career, and citizenship. To be good citizens, to have a fantastic life, and to have the career that wraps around their passions. So those are our recommendations.
Now, just hold still. We have a couple of speakers. We have Mrs. Francine Maxwell and then Citizen. Okay. And you have 3 minutes each.
So this committee said do a better job at monitoring, and it took 2 years for that. This committee, the biggest problem with this board select committee graduation standard was that this board approved $75,000 contract with the political media consultant Tony M. to complete the project. Why are we paying a consultant to have, and we have an entire communications department with Andrew Sharp at the helm? Students identified as leavers, 65% of the class of 2016 was African American and Latino students. Why are we being stuck on 2016? Where are the graduates for class of 2017? 86.6. Class of 2018, 86.9. And why has it gone down from the miracle of 91%? I think that we need to have more dialogue. You say you want to build trust, but we can no longer even consider building trust when you give us a sham of a PowerPoint presentation. There is no facts, no figures, no data. The graphics Come on, we're in 2019. At what point are we going to start to be real with each other? We can do a deep dive just like everybody else, but we're not making 6 and 7 figures like most of the people that are sitting on the diocese. Once again, the attendance rate, the high rate of suspension early in their school careers, then students who graduated, page 33. This line confirms the fact that in order to achieve such a miracle graduation rate, the district moved out the low-performing students, plain and simple. And once again, even worse, they're black and brown students from District E.
Citizen?
So I just listened to a bunch of bureaucrat babble. And we've got a report that we're going to shelve, and it's going to gather dust like the many reports that have been paid for by this district, and it's wasted money. And we've got a superintendent here that can't even answer the questions about the SSC training. We've been asking for years to put the training on video, and we got pushback from the employees. They don't want to do that. In the 21st century, they don't want to make a video of the training so it's available to all the people that can't show up at trainings because they're at work or they've got children at home and they can't come to these trainings. There's been no effort to make training accessible by putting it online where it's accessible to everybody, whether they do it at the school or they do it at their homes. This report talks about tailor-made to specific challenges. Well, Martin has created a whole bunch of tailor-made programs for Lincoln High School. And Lincoln High School is still at the bottom. And this report isn't going to change anything. It was interesting that it noted that kids are leaving high school as freshmen and sophomores. Well, there's no secret to it. You have to have a good teacher. And yet, at Hardy Elementary, we have a teacher that abuses kids, humiliates kids, insults kids. There was a big report from the San Diego County Grand Jury about this abusive teacher, and that teacher's still teaching. That is not an effective teacher, but we can't get rid of the grossly ineffective teachers. You have one for just 1 year, and you've just hurt that kid's chances for his future. And the graduation rate is stated again as 91.3%. Well, if you pay for a report, you get the report that you paid for. So you put that figure back out there over and over again, 91.3%. But tell the truth about how you really got to that number. Okay? 1,500 students left this district this year. And you guys would have us believe that this district, with Barrera at the helm, should be more responsible for the students in the charters. Are you kidding me? You guys can't even handle the schools that you have. That's why kids are leaving. There's no secret to it. They're leaving because they don't like their teachers, they don't like sitting in a class and wasting their time, and they're not learning anything. Kids are kids. If they're bored, they don't want to be there. As for providing PD for teachers, come on guys, hire people that can teach. Fire people that are grossly ineffective. Instead of leaving them in the classroom, last time I checked, that teacher's still there, year after year after year. And quality assurance was going to figure out all the problems and where the complaints are coming from, and we're going to fix these things. We got more lawsuits coming from quality assurance than resolving any problems. So again, we've got a worthless report and bureaucratic babble.
Thank you. That ends our public discussion on that. Now from board members.
Can I just respond about the comments about the graduation rate going down? Would that be okay? Okay. Sure. So the graduation rate in 2016 was one piece of criteria, and the next year, the federal government did an audit on the state of California and adjusted the graduation expectations, which changed the numerator and the denominator with which our graduation rate was factored. And when that happened, and we were told after graduation numbers went in. We weren't told in time to do any adjusting or thinking about those changes. Our graduation rate went down because of the change in the numerator and denominator, primarily our students who are at Twain and Garfield, our pregnant minors, those students who were earning option 2 diplomas then were taken out, but it was after June, so there was nothing that we could do in terms of that change. I will say, though, even though everyone in the state's graduation rates went down, ours stayed at the top of the state graduation rates despite the change that everyone went through.
But Cheryl, could you actually explain the option 2 diploma? Yeah.
So for as long as I've been in the district, 20 years, there has been an agreement between the community college district and San Diego Unified, which is kind of why this particular decision that the federal government made kind of rubs me a little bit, because we never accepted a state minimum. We never said, oh, just go ahead and do a state minimum. What we did is we said a state minimum isn't good enough. So we built a relationship with the community college and we said, yes, we will honor for students only who are at risk. So if I enter the 11th grade, I'm not going to make it. We weren't going to say, well, you just need to drop out. So we gave these kids an option to get a diploma, but we didn't just say, oh, let's just use the state minimum. We partnered with the community colleges and we said you have to take college coursework because we're not just going to waive the 22 credits. A regular diploma is 44 credits. An option 2 is 22 credits. So certain coursework is not required under state minimum requirements. And we required that the students had to show mastery at a college level course. And that was our option 2. Well, what happened to us is when the federal government came in and looked at California as a whole and said, oh, these state minimum requirements, we're not going to count them as graduation anymore. And I guess I could understand from a certain vantage point why someone might say that. We were swept up in that decision, even though our diploma was not just a 22 simple state minimum. But the problem is that we found out after graduation in 2017 that the metrics were changed. So there was no way to go back and say, oh my goodness, let's do everything we can to relook at, there was nothing we could do.
Yeah, and I appreciate you going through that a little bit because I think it's important for people to understand that students who we can no longer count as high school graduates are students who in fact have accelerated and have mastered college level courses through the community college system. I was just having a conversation yesterday with Fahadi Jeffers, who was a co-founder of the United Domestic Workers, the second union that Cesar Chavez inspired. Fahadi is now in the San Diego Women's Hall of Fame. When Fahadi was 12 years old, she was homeless. She was going in and out of the juvenile justice system. She basically had missed about 4 years of school. Went back to what at the time was Snyder, at the age of 16. But as she was catching up at Snyder, she was enrolling in classes at City College and graduated from San Diego State with her bachelor's degree at the age of 21. This was a kid who was homeless at 12 and basically missed 4 years of school. Fahadi would not be counted as a high school graduate under this, ruling by the Trump administration. So, I think, what people need to understand is, because we continue to push towards a more meaningful level of graduation, and because we've been doing that for years, a kid who is moving ahead and accelerating despite significant challenges that they've faced in their life and is now mastering content at the community college level courses, is no longer considered a high school graduate under this Trump administration ruling, which is absurd. So that's, so if people want to say, why did we go from a 91% to an 86% graduation rate, is because the Trump administration has decided that kids who are actually accelerated should no longer be considered high school graduates, which is ridiculous. So I appreciate, Cheryl.
And I just wanted to add into that, because when we're talking about these numbers, it's what's been patently false in the media is that was from 1 year to the next, the graduation rate went down. Yeah. That would be the same as if we took the standardized state tests, and we took the old test and the new test, and the new number came out lower when it was a completely different test. It was a different way of measuring. We were using one system, and the whole argument was when we had these rigorous requirements, the graduation rate would go down. Using that same method, it went up. Now we have a new method, which may not be fair, but we can still move that up from there. I mean, one basic fact that people don't realize is you have to have a D in a course to get a high school credit. But the Sandy Unified requirement is you have a 2.0 grade point average, which means you have to have a B to make up for every D that you have. There are other districts, wealthier districts in the county that have no grade point average requirement for graduation. You could theoretically go straight Ds through high school in every course and still have a diploma. So again, this is, we're talking about a more rigorous thing, and it's just completely false that it went down, and people are taking the facts, the numbers, I should say, out of context and making a false statement about the graduation rate going down.
Well, and it's likely going to happen to us again next year, because now that Tom Torlakson, which thank goodness, looked at the migrant and newcomer situation and has now changed, the legislation has changed, so we can actually look at our migrant and EL students who are in 11th and 12th grade, who are new to the country, who haven't taken any coursework, who normally enroll in our schools and then end up being dropouts because they're 17 and they come and we can't get them graduated in 2 years. They just changed the legislation. Now we can actually, and I've got a huge stack of transcripts on my desk, I'll give you an example. At Hoover, there are 31 kids in his 11th and 12th grade right now that if we are now allowed to use the same compact that we use for military, homeless, foster, for our migrant and our English learner newcomer students who enter in 11th grade. What does that mean? That means that at Hoover in 1 year, if we take care of those 31 kids, his graduation rate his leaver rate will drop, his graduation rate will rise, and so these factors play into graduation. I just want to say about this report too, and this means something to me because I spent a year of my life in these committees and 5 years of my life here. All that this committee had to do was tell us, yep, you met 91%, right? But that is not what they did. And if you go to the back of this report and see who the people in the committee were, oh my gosh, 5 minutes of the discussion for a year was, yeah, your graduation rate, it's legal. Now let's talk about what we expect in the city for the best possible graduation in the city. And we spent a year with these high-level people telling us, not good enough. Not good enough. Not good enough. You need to do this. You need to do this. And the reason that we convene people like that, and it's amazing. I tell other districts all the time that we did this report. They're like, you told people that? Yes, because we're trying to go from good to great.
That's right.
We don't have anything to hide. We're not perfect.
That's right.
And so that was really an amazing part of this process, was having the chancellor of the community college district, the president of these colleges come in and say, yeah, 91%. No. The kids need to stay. It was just, who does that? And so we're trying to now build a system that is going to allow us to do something that systems across the nation can't do or are trying to do.
Yeah, and I just want to, again, echo exactly the point that you just made, Cheryl, which is, this district does that consistently. The fact that we pushed ourselves and said we're going to achieve A to G, for all, when people said, well, that's going to, your graduation rate's going to, go down the tubes if you do that. Every step of the way, what we do is we push ourselves to do better for our young people. And when we push ourselves, we include the community in this process. We don't just simply say it's an insular process, but we reach out to the community and say, we need your input, but you also have a responsibility to do your part. And so that is a consistent theme of, I think, what we've certainly seen under Superintendent Martin's leadership in this district. We push ourselves all the time, that when we achieve a certain level, we push harder. which is, by the way, part of what we're identifying as the profile of a meaningful graduate, from our district. Somebody's always, pushing to the next step and doing it collaboratively. I think the only couple of questions that I had, and thank you for the report, and one of the things that I would maybe recommend is that we send a copy of the report to everybody who participated in the task force, and maybe also send a link to your presentation, because I think there were things in your presentation that weren't necessarily picked up in the report. So I think that would be great. The push for the graduate profile, I think, is so important, and it was the centerpiece of our Vision 2030 workshop. That's our North Star. That's what we're trying to achieve. But I think while we're going through the community process, I think what Dr. Evans talked about is we're not waiting for the final definition of the graduate profile, and we also know that the definition of a graduate profile will evolve, over the next 12 years. I'm wondering what we can do for 2019, 2020, 2021 to get as defined as we can right now about what that North Star is, so that it goes back into all the way back to the early grades and informs people. That would be my question.
I believe principals are already engaging in those conversations in cluster, by level, in this idea of cluster, common-wide, common assessments. So they're already engaging in those conversations. And what metrics are we going to use to demonstrate mastery, particularly at that third grade level, but also in middle school? How are we assessing mastery at middle school, and what do we, how do we identify readiness for students to be able to enter high school reading at grade level with the math skills that they need to successfully pass their courses?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think the example, of the district that did like a 1650 SAT, I think, I think our reaction to that would be positive and negative. The negative would be, it's probably too narrow. A meaningful graduate, the graduate profile that we're trying to get at is not a 1650 SAT. It's everything that you're, describing. However, what's positive about that is there's enough clarity in the goal that it can then be something that, everybody in the system can work with. So as we're getting, clearer going through this process, Sophia, that you just described, about at this point, what's our, best and clearest thinking of what a graduate profile is, I think, being able to identify some of these things that can sort of organize a system because, it makes sense to people, there's enough clarity in what we're trying to achieve, I think would be great. And then my only other, I'm sorry, President Weather, my only other question was, in terms of the report and the data on the leavers, when do we anticipate seeing that report, for this academic year? Do we have a sense yet, or is that?
Ron's built so the report is built. We provided it to the principals when they did their strategic plans. So it's just a matter of we could maybe quarterly load.
I think that would be helpful. Part of kind of the focus of the task force. So let's shine a light on that issue and and measure it. But everything that you guys were going through, it just made me think of the students from Hickman talk about start with the end in mind. That's exactly what you're doing. So thank you.
Well, speaking of students, as a student, I have a few comments and questions about your presentation. Starting off, I really do appreciate that process of perpetually improving, right? Because, perfection is not something that will be reached just working to be as perfect as possible. So that's something that I also do ingrain into my philosophy as well. So when we're speaking about goals and a meaningful graduation, right, having the fundamental skills needed for post-secondary education, it seems to be mostly just setting the goals at the school. What I'm trying to ask is, are there going to be any classes or additional classes offered? Because, I was reading a New York Times article the other day about how many of the millennials are concerned about the financial illiteracy in America. So, studying stocks, personal finance, and although I partake in these activities myself in my spare time, I feel that many students would benefit from understanding how to, invest in the stock market, choose those blue chip stocks, and, watch their money grow. Not in a bank, because it won't grow as much, right? So these fundamental skills, because personal finance, that is a necessity. When you go off to college, so many students are in debt, and having that money sit in the stock market in a more reliable mutual fund per se, instead of in the bank, is perhaps just the knowledge of what to invest in, and is going to be far more beneficial in eliminating student debt as well, right? So these fundamental skills, yes, there are goals. But is that it? Is there going to be, more classes offered as well?
Answer that.
Sorry.
Now.
He's from Scripps Ranch, right? This is my neighbor. Okay. So this really doesn't have anything to do with this, but I love this question. Wouldn't it be amazing if we didn't have to add more classes, but financial literacy was your history and your math and your, like, the idea of citizenship or learning how to become a person that manages their finances was actually part of what you did in your core classwork?
Sure.
So that your classwork actually had meaning?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Well, no, I want you to agree with me.
Well, I do.
That's my soapbox right now.
Yeah, I agree. But and also about the setting the goals, right? There are these state levels, right?
Yeah,
but we're shooting above that, but. Are we taking a look at every single step, the state requirement, and then kind of rewriting our San Diego Unified requirements? I'm just kind of confused on what the equal requirement is.
You need to be a part of that. And just so you know, your school is the only school in the city who has actually gone through the graduate profile process. So your new principal, Ms. DeWitt, she went into your community and did a graduate profile and gave a survey to the entire community, and they chose like the top 5 things that they wanted every Falcon to have an experience, and it was shocking to many of us. Well, it wasn't shocking to me, but it was shocking for some people about what the top 5 were that your parents and your community chose. And that's how, those posters in your school now that are about they have social, emotional, all of that came out of your graduate profile experience in Scripps Ranch. So you should be a part not only of the Scripps Ranch part, but the district portion, because those conversations have to be in developing this future student.
Okay.
And the student voice has to be at the center of that.
Yes. All right. And I have one more question about the presentation. I'm glad that there is some kind of concrete form of measurement and proficiency, because that is definitely the concern that goes throughout education, the educational system in America in general. How do we measure this, right? I'm just kind of curious on we can predict whether a student is going to drop out at 3rd grade. This is a prediction method, right? It's not a guarantee. What is the percent error in this kind of gauge? How accurate is it?
I don't think we looked at Ron Rohde would have to come up here and answer that question for you, but I don't think that we looked so much at the percent in error of prediction. I think what was honestly surprising to us about the leaky pipeline was that it could be predicted at all. There literally was that your math or English score was predictive of your disciplined behavior in 7th grade, was predictive of your attendance change in 10th grade, and then you were basically gone in 11th. The other piece that I would say was, I don't know if it was predictive, but there was a trend, was who it was, who the kids were that came in and out. So there were differences in races that left or ethnicities that left at different parts of the pipeline, but I don't know that we looked at how accurate the predictions were. And you're right, it can be changed. And that's why we have to go back to 3rd grade or potentially kindergarten and say, enough is enough. We don't want that predictability to be there. We want that to be everyone making it through graduation.
Indeed. And I asked the percentage not really as much of a critique, because I find it quite interesting. When you brought up that, we can predict these things from 3rd grade, I was like, wow. That is interesting, and so I was just curious to know what the accuracy was, but thank you so much. Yes, of course.
Okay, I'd like to chime in on this also, because
when I first decided to run for the school board a long time ago, I had some conversations with a lot of people, and I found out that there's actually a lot of evidence, and demographers, or people that project prison populations in the future, they look at third grade literacy rates. Because if you cannot read or write or do arithmetic in the third grade, over 90% of those, are likely to go on and fill those prison beds. So when the demographers need to plan ahead and say, okay, in 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, how many prison beds are we going to need in a community? They look at those third grade graduation rates. And that's why it is essential that we continue this work and the focus on the K-3 literacy programs, the supports. There's also research, long-term research, that shows that when in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade, student class sizes are small, that the likelihood of those kids then to become literate by the end of third grade is very, 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 very strong. And so that's why we've got to continue as we look at difficult budgets, as we, all the teachers and all the classified employees and everybody in our district look at what do we want for our kids? Do we want bigger class sizes, or do we want shared sacrifice? Then I think we all, hopefully we all can agree that lower class sizes are the right thing to do for the kids. So there is lots of research and evidence. You can just Google it.
Yeah.
I'm serious. If you
I'm glad you
Google
brought that up.
Google third grade literacy prison populations, you'll see all these studies.
Indeed. Well, regardless, I'm glad that preventative measures are being taken.
Thank you. Huda?
Expanding on that thought, I believe I heard in the presentation that you guys are planning to implement this same strategy before kindergarten, I believe. So I'm wondering how you're planning to follow with that assessment.
The focus has been on early literacy, and so the sooner we can get kids to read and read at grade level, that's been our focus. So area superintendents that supervise and support the middle schools and elementary schools can share more details about the coaching cycles and the efforts that have been put in place to ensure that we're closely monitoring reading at TK, kinder, and first grade, second grade, and third grade. But it's basically, we're not just tackling it at third grade. We're actually ensuring that students are reading at grade level and closely monitoring reading at every level at the elementary school. It's critical.
In response to that also, on last night, Lincoln had its cluster meeting for the schools that are in that particular cluster. And the principals noted that only 30% of their kids come to K with some literacy skills. So later we're going to talk about the DEEP program and other areas. One of the things the district has done now, hopefully it's being implemented, is that we will be able to identify children who are in homes where we already have children, and then begin to do something. And Superintendent and I have dialogued about how can we make preschool available to every home, not just those. I understand even a modicum amount of $50 or $100 a month may be too much. So we've got to identify those issues so that we can get children in early and they can start understanding. They talked about how they only had 10, their vocabulary was not there because they're coming in not knowing any of these things. So we've got to attack the problem before they even get there. Also, you mentioned Faith School. You and I showed up there not knowing the other one was going to be there. But at Faith School, they noted that some of the children whom they've been working with came in, and because they've been using this approach with the children, where they have someone from the other team, from the central team, Noemi's team, or they're all coming together to support the school site, they're able to go in and identify what specifically each child needs, and then to actually supply it on the spot. So now the teachers feel that their needs are being met because they're just not teaching generically, but they're specifically zeroing in on what each individual child needs. And then that's vicariously helping some of the other children who are not the focus children for that particular grade level of that class. So I'm really excited because, Kevin, rather than just generic reduced class size, I would like to see something targeted where folks go in and they're changing attitudes, they're changing attendance, they're changing children's desire to come to school, because now they've identified what the problem is. They're enabling them to access the information and to learn something.
Students are teaching each other.
Yes, that was another project that came out of it. So, Dr. John, and then
Yeah,
we'll
just
move
a
on.
couple of quick comments and a couple of questions. And when we talk about the graduation rate, I just want to emphasize again the whole issue of, before we had the ADG requirements, 44% of the students who graduated were eligible for CSU and UC. After we implemented these requirements, it was up to 70%. I mean, that's more, you know, I mean, we talked about the SAT scores and stuff. I mean, that's a real change, because obviously our aspirational goal is to have all of the students, 100% of the students at that level. Not that we expect every student to go to college, but we do want every student to graduate with the choice of going to college or going into some other career field. Just a couple comments here. When you talked about the essential competencies on slide 15, I was thinking about, in just 1 or 2 generations, it has changed so drastically, because there are all these cognitive, personal, interpersonal. Basically, before, all we looked at was the top one, content mastery. You know, do you know, can you pass a test in biology and chemistry and geometry? And then all the personal, interpersonal, we had good work habits, which mean you complete your assignments and you're quiet while you do it. And then some social skills, that you were fairly polite, you know, with your, at least with your teacher. And that was about it. And so, but this is, when you're talking about this graduation profile, this is a huge challenge, because those other things are just so much simpler to measure. You know, what score can you get on a biology test? And yet these are the things that, and I'm sure it's what the Scripps Ranch parents and everybody else said too, these are the things that the students need to be successful in life. So I just wanted to, a couple of things we talked about this 3rd grade literacy level, and I know we've brought it up before, but my understanding was that each school has its own assessments and so forth as they're you know, the benchmarks and so forth as they're going along. But as a district, how do we, does each school have its own definition of being at grade level, or how do we know district-wide where we are? That's for the superintendent, since she's into literacy.
Yeah,
and other things.
Elementary literacy, exactly. We are monitoring that. What you're speaking about is when we stop collecting it at the district level. Just because we don't collect those reading levels at the district level doesn't mean there isn't a standard and expectation, and school by school, cluster by cluster, the area superintendents work with the principals work with their teams to monitor the reading levels, and there are standard ways that they assess. They can use the DRA as one of them, the running record.
They might use different standards, but whatever standard they're using is showing them at grade level. So
Yes.
if they were at Curie Elementary or at
Yes.
Central,
It translates to a
it would-
reading level to a grade level.
Okay, yeah, that's what it'd be. Okay, and then the other issue was about, you know, we talked about identifying at-risk students, and which is really important at a very early age. But sometimes we use at-risk to sort of define a person. This is an at-risk youth because of how they performed one year, or because of their race, or their socioeconomic background and so forth. And like with English language learners, we have English learners and we have reclassified. And I think we need something like that with these, you know, 3rd grade at risk. At what point are they reclassified? And so I'm wondering, when we talked about student profiles or the dashboards that keep track of how students are performing, I mean, you said it was much more important to have the principals, wherever it was, like looking at these lists of actual names of kids rather than, you know, 36% and 48 and all that. I don't know how far we are on the whole dashboard thing for all the students, but it seems like that would be very key to, you know, this student at 3rd grade is at risk, and therefore these are the interventions we're doing, and at 4th grade they're still at risk, and this is the interventions we're doing, and at 5th grade they're reclassified so that their card, whatever it is, kind of goes from red to green. Although all I hear about red and green cards is when the little kids are in school and they say, I got a red card today because I got in trouble. But you know, just tracking that on a personal level, like where is this student? I mean, so I guess the question is, where are we at with the student dashboard? Because we talked about, you know, sort of identifying their strengths and their dreams and all of that. Where are we?
I think that goes back to slide 10 that Dr. Freire talked about, is the different types of assessments that we have, formative, interim, benchmark, and summative, and that across each school there's common formative assessments. And we're talking about the layers of assessment that have to happen. So it's not just the end of the unit assessment or the standardized test. It's how are we developing common formative assessments tied to the critical standards that we've developed, so there's consistency and a guaranteed viable curriculum across the district that has an assessment tied to it.
Okay, so that's the assessment, but how do we know as a district that Benjamin Gomez in 4th grade,
These are the predictive
this is what he's doing
indicators.
on these tests, these are what his personality strengths are, this is others, I mean, do we have that compiled somewhere?
That's why the leaky pipeline actually could be kindergarten, because the first time we formally assess students is in 3rd grade, so that's where we're making this prediction. So sure, we completely have the ability on our dashboard. We have the early warning system, we have different dashboards that IT has built. I think what we might have to get more clear about, though, is if every student, like something that I hear when I listen to the elementary ISOs, is this idea that there's a certain number of words. Instructional support officers. Is there are a certain number of words or numbers, or you need to be able to read at the end of a certain grade level. So if we don't have formal ways of measuring that besides a running record or something that we can query quickly, that would be part of this process, is saying, so like me, I love the idea of defending your way out of the grade level. I would love to see kindergartners defend their way out of kindergarten. Like, you set targets, you say this is what you need to do, and then the kids get up and they have to be metacognitive to defend their way out, because we do it in the high schools, right? They defend their way out of 12th grade. So those performance assessments, can you imagine if we said, well, you know, here's your dashboard and you need to monitor your own progress, and then a kindergartner, and now I know they can do it because I've been in those STEAM rooms, and the 4-year-olds are more creative and outgoing than the 5-year-olds, and no, they can do it. And so that's part of this process of building the backbone and building the dashboard. And
So with the dashboard, let's say the 4th grade teacher, would he have the information from kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade about what has happened with his student in a very summarized form, so that, and then he would pass that on to the 5th grade teacher?
I think that would be hard to do with running records. Like, I know they keep that data, but
I believe in terms of literacy, we're there.
Okay.
In the other areas that create this multidimensional picture, that would have to be built out. But elementary principals know which students at every grade level are not reading at grade level.
Good.
They have evaluation goals based on the number of kids not reading at grade level, with the expectation that they decrease the number of students not reading at grade level every year. And so around reading instruction, like Superintendent Martin just said, that most schools are using DRA, if not all elementary schools are using DRA as the measure. Cheryl mentioned, well, that doesn't give us good, accurate data in terms of the earlier grades, and so that would need to be built out. But for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, principals know which students are not reading at grade level. They know them not by percentages or numbers, they know them by name.
That's good. You know, in 3 weeks, we plan to continue some of this discussion with our grading workshop, so hopefully you guys will come back and present some of those items to us. And I want to thank all of you for this rich discussion around this issue, because this is what it's about. We're going to move on now to thank you all for that. Item E4. Vision 2020 LCAP presentation, and this is from the Family and Community Engagement Group. It's informational, and Superintendent Martin. want to present?
Thank you,
on this
President
item?
Whitehurst Payne. We have two staff members joining us up here, and luckily there's two seats ready for them. Ms. Laskowski and Ms. King are going to present this item. It's an LCAP update. It's focused on family and community engagement. It's LCAP Goal 4. This is part of our regular process to update you. That was a grad strategies report that you just had. This is a regular process of an LCAP update, so you can see progress that we've made on this particular area of parent and family engagement. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, thank you for having us, and Happy New Year. I always usually get down to business, and today I put thank you for the opportunity for us to be here tonight and share with you some of the work that we've been doing and how we're continuing the work that has started with our families. I'd like to give a little bit of context to the board about, and the audience members as well, about what we did this year. As you know, at that time, the Family and Community Engagement Office transitioned last year, and there was a number of staff reductions that we had due to our budget. And I have to say, I remember having a conversation with Lalia Ali and her sharing her concerns about the loss of some of our family engagement staff. And Sandra and I had the opportunity to restructure how we were supporting through the Office of Language Acquisition. And with collaboration with Pamela, we went ahead and created a family outreach and support team through the Office of Language Acquisition to help mitigate and to provide additional support and also maximize the support we were giving and extending to families. So that was a direct result of listening to our families and knowing their concerns and knowing where they were coming from, feeling like there was a loss. We actually created a gain. So we actually have increased our team by 2 staff members with the Office of Language Acquisition. So the purpose of this slide is mostly to highlight some of the work that we're doing with parents, and it resonates with some of the conversations that happened earlier tonight. So this idea of elevating parent voice and actually hearing from our parents. Some of the feedback that we had gotten in the past was parents felt that we were talking to them and not necessarily listening in a sense where we were elevating their voice. So we're creating trainings from parents through videos and other ways in which we're utilizing technology. We are utilizing, and we'll delineate a little bit more, we're also utilizing technology through podcasts. I heard about the deficit in some of our early learners, and so we're using short podcasts for parents with a learning on the go, so to speak, which might be a 30-second little blurb about when you're in the grocery store, how do you engage with your student. So that's one way in which we can build vocabulary and essentially literacy skills with our early learners, and have our parents as the first teacher do that. Online training through the parent portal to stay connected, to look at, for example, attendance records or emails and communication with the school, as well as offering a little bit of online training for our ELAC parents. We heard that from our Hoover parents as well as Montgomery. And building bridges is this concept of providing a Saturday conference style work that we're hoping to replicate across our how can I say, other neighborhood centers in the future, and of course our high impact home strategies. So I'm going to and I'm praying that the video works this time, because we do have a video link. Marty, did we get that? Okay, so I'll pass it off to Pamela.
Okay, thank you. So we truly value the contributions in our parent voices. So Family Engagement want to showcase the voices of our parent leaders by creating like the video vignettes. And so they support parent-to-parent strategies to support home engagement, as well as advice and stories that parents can try on immediately. So here's an example from our PTA president, Derek Borner. He's sharing his ideas with other parents, and this video was actually showcased at our parent involvement celebrations, which were held at the neighborhood centers. If you can see the video.
Do I click it? Oh, you do. Oh, no. No? Oh. Oh, my goodness.
There we go. Sound?
The volume. Oh, okay.
And just like every other thing on this machine. Oh, I'm sorry. They never plugged it back in after the presentation.
But it wasn't me. I'm so sorry.
So, I think there's a number of things that can be done to support my kids' learning. It depends on the situation. It depends on the child. Sometimes it's as simple as just looking through their backpack and see what they brought home and the work that they worked on in class. I love to ask, what's the most exciting thing you did at school today? I learned very early that asking what you did at school today just got the answer, nothing, or I don't remember. So asking the most exciting thing gets them engaged and helps me engage them. Sometimes being engaged is going on a field trip, volunteering in class, having an open line of communication with the teachers so I can reach out to them and they can reach out to me if there's any issues that we need to handle. But every child's different. My two kids are vastly different. So the situation is going to change all the time depending on the event. I think the best advice I could give is just know that your kids can talk to you about their education and know that you're there to help. So success is going to change all the time. I love to volunteer at school. My wife loves to volunteer at school. Sometimes success is volunteering at that school dance. Sometimes success is not volunteering, but just going with my kids to that school dance. Sometimes it's going on the field trip. Sometimes it's just donating so other kids can go on the field trip. There are so many different ways that we as parents can support not just our kids, but all the kids in our child's class and at their school. And that's what, as a parent, you have to try to find your fit and your child's fit in that success.
Click on the next one. So we have Shantae Cato. She's actually leading the work in creating podcasts for our parents to support our youngest learners. So we're creating these highly engaging, short learning on the go podcasts, and they share tips for building a child's vocabulary. And the attendant audience is for children, parents of children birth to pre-K. It helps us build these stronger and trusting relationships with parents as partners in the education of their child, which are our students, through technology. So we're using the social media to provide this early childhood interaction. And we know parent involvement is crucial to the support academic success. So we have the parent portal, which is a tool for parents to stay informed and engaged in their child's education. Currently, our middle and high school parents are utilizing that tool. However, our parents of students in elementary schools don't have the same access. So therefore, we're collaborating with IT assessment services on a parent training initiative. And this is going to train parents to use the district web portal. So it's open communication. It's a convenient way for parents is to check in on their child's academic, so they can view the academic information, the attendance, the grades, email notifications, school bulletin, and then they can look at those reports from the SBAC, which is the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium, as well as the LCAP, which is the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California. So we're working together to truly partner with parents in the education of their child through technology. And we're, did I do something? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Another, I guess, other feedback we heard from parents was that it was really difficult for them to utilize the tools and resources that we had in the past to support ELACs. So what our family outreach and support team has created is ELAC templates that can be customized for each school site. These slide decks have facilitators' notes as well as ways in which to engage your audience so that anyone would be able to lead these ELAC training sessions. And so it could be the principal, the EL coordinator, it could be co-presented with a parent leader. So we've tried to take the mystery out of it and make it very convenient. Our team has these available in English and Spanish right now, and they're online. Parents, school sites can download them and use them as is. We've already utilized them at Montgomery Middle School, and we've gotten amazing feedback. We've also heard it being used in the Point Loma cluster area, and some of our LERTs, our English Language Instructional Resource Teachers, are like, oh my goodness, this is even such a support for us. So we're very thrilled to be able to provide some of this information digitally, downloadable, as well as customizable.
We'll go ahead. Go ahead. So we're providing cluster support as well, and we have the Linda Vista Parent Empowerment Conference, which is going to be held at Montgomery Middle School. We currently have one of our neighborhood centers there. It's going to be on January 26th, which is a Saturday, from 8:30 to 2:30, and we are planning to replicate this at our other neighborhood centers. So some of the workshop topics include family advocacy by Amy Redding. We'll have special education by Dr. Maura Albright, as well as STEAM workshops by some of the resources teachers from Linda Vista. We'll have a workshop about bioliteracy, ELs, as well as far as really speaking to the importance of ELAC and reclassification. And then Dr. Sarah Gertie will be talking about bilingual education. So this Parent Leadership Conference, you can see the theme here is like building bridges to our future. And so the expectations are to empower parents to participate in their child's education, as well as to inform parents about the IEP process, student special education services, and look into those best practices that actually support student learning. So we'll be having a panel discussion as well that will involve the parents, teachers, and community leaders. And additionally, the hope is to involve the Linda Vista community and have them feel proud of the schools that are within their areas in the Kearney cluster. So we're working with Montgomery feeder school staff, resource teachers, parents, the Kearney cluster area superintendent and community leaders. And again, we definitely want to replicate this event in other communities once we understand the needs of those schools and those communities and how to better serve them.
And finally, I'll elaborate a little bit on the high-impact home strategies, which is the hallmark of our work that we do with parents. This idea of the high-impact home strategies are a way in which we can connect the academic experience to the home experience and have those same types of conversations and interactions happen at home. So as you know, we've created last year high impact home strategies. This year, I'm proud to say that we have already created math high impact home strategies for problems in content. Along with that, there will be, again, a PowerPoint. You can kind of see a number talk parent workshop that can be customized and given at a Family Friday or before or after a student-centered coaching cycle. We also have high-impact home strategies that we have worked on for nonfiction, and our team is presented this already. And I'm going to share, our dual language team also is in on this, and we've created bookmarks that also have high-impact home strategies that support our Adelante and benchmark curriculum, which is very similar to the types of high-impact home strategies that we give in general. So you can see that we're working more as a collective. I heard the word cohesion mentioned earlier with the graduation strategies, and that's what we're working towards. We've really blended our teams together, that it's almost seamless, utilizing our Common Core support teachers as well. And so we're very thrilled, and of course, sitting down with our parent leaders, and in fact, the coming soon is based on a conversation that I sat in on with parents. I invited them to my office, and I asked them, what do you want? And this idea of universal design for student learning came up. So we're going to work on that in the coming months to have something tangible for parents to understand what that is, and again, the implications of the UDL, or the Universal Design for Learning. It supports the IMTSS, which is multiple tiers of support for students, and it comes into differentiation and how do we support students as well as parents in the understanding about core content, and how do we make it accessible for all students. So with that, we thank you for your time and are ready for any comments or questions.
Thank you. We have a couple of speakers on this item. Mrs. Francine Maxwell and Citizen.
Okay, so when you guys talk about parent engagement, what I generally see is that you only want parents that are going to go along with your program. But the parents that are questioning and the parents that have real issues, you guys send them arrest letters. You guys try to put restraining orders on them. You guys try to shut us up. I've been complaining and complaining about the Saturday school program for years. You guys didn't provide meals for these kids. These kids were out there at 6 o'clock in the morning waiting for Saturday school to start, and these parents don't even understand why their kids are at Saturday school. And you guys didn't listen. We finally got meals in thanks to the guy that's doing the food services thing, and he did finally start serving meals to kids at Saturday school. But parents still don't understand why their kids are going to Saturday school and sitting there for hours doing nothing. It's nothing more than a teacher overtime program. It's nothing more than a teacher collecting a bunch of money, but no quality education is going on. So when you talk about parent involvement, you want parents to invest all these hours in your programs. But when it comes to it's a problem, you guys aren't there. You guys aren't there. I've seen it over and over again. So this program looks really great, and it makes John Lee Evans really happy that you're working on his Vision 2020, but boots on the ground, what parents really get frustrated about, this is what you guys are. A quality company isn't a quality company about how it handles things when everybody's happy and they eat the cookies at the PTA meetings and they go to the SSC meetings. It's how do you handle it when there's a real issue. Well, I just read on the front page of the San Diego Reader, a father and a mother trying to get help for their 2 children at Lincoln High School. He ends up getting arrested. You guys have a whole bunch of district employees testifying that he was out to kill them all. Well, I sat in that courtroom and I listened, and there was no such thing. And yet this father was dragged through court with attorneys and had to face all these issues. So parent involvement? I don't think so, because that's not what really happens. It's not about let's all be happy. It's what are you doing when parents really run into a problem?
Mrs. Maxwell.
November 28 of 2018, we had an article, "Parents are struggling to engage with San Diego Unified." The first line read, "Governor Jerry Brown signed in 2013 law overhauling how schools are funded. Parent input was big part of the deal." 5 years into the new law, family and community engagement has actually gone down at San Diego Unified. We already know this to be true because over a year ago, this district used to meet monthly over the blueprint for the acceleration of African American students. African American students are at the bottom. So it was nice that the district engaged with the community and the educators to discuss why are African American children still on the bottom after we've implemented all these things. Those used to occur at the Hive. There were public forums on the LCFF. Those are gone. We used to have a viable parent center, which was changed to the Office of Family and Community Engagement, and now that's gone. Now all you can present are podcasts and infrequent conferences. This presentation didn't have anything about portal hits. I think that we can gauge how many times parents or anybody hits the portal to learn and watch the podcast. That was not reported. I come from a Wi-Fi challenged community, and although they go to the library a lot and our rec centers now have computers in them, we need to make sure that we access more things. And like the gentleman said, that they are throwing wonderful IEP trainings. They're in our schools in District E, but nobody shows up because nobody is telling anybody. And the reason why they're not telling anybody, because they really don't want to arm the parents with their rights, because if the parents knew their rights in that IEP when they go to that meeting, oh boy. And so San Diego Unified has went on having we used to have numerous opportunities for family and community engagement. So why has it changed? For the very same reason that this board, that you've moved non-agenda public comment to the end of the meeting. You purposely moved where the community could come and engage you and tell you what you consider complaints, but they give you solution-based complaints and you just don't take them. And so you've pushed them to almost 9 o'clock at night where you know that they can't because they're working 2 and 3 jobs to stay here and live in sunny San Diego. So by shutting down and shutting out the community, you are missing a great opportunity to engage with us. You're violating state laws around LCAP. That is exactly what the San Diego County ACLU has informed you of when they sent you a letter July of 2018. All of you have received that ACLU letter because I have 100 of them in my trunk about the complaint letter and the misappropriation that you're using with this money. So as we continue to say Happy New Year to each other, I'm getting happy to listen and watch presentations that are same way that they were from 2015. She could have told us, either one of them, how many times somebody has hit this portal. They should have been reporting data so that you can see the disproportionate from north of 8, south of 8, who's hitting the portal. So let's get off of the word equity because we don't have any.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from board members? Mr. Barrera.
Thank you, President Whitehurst-Payne. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about the podcasts and the Learning on the Go videos specifically. How are we getting the word out? And especially to the parents of young kids that might not even, it sounds like when we say birth today, it sounds like we're talking about parents who might not even be in our preschools yet. So how do we get the word out, and how do we get these, videos and podcasts out to those parents?
Well, they will be available on our website, so there'll be a Learning on the Go podcast tab. We're thinking at first, it's got to be word of mouth. Our younger parents are always on their phones and social media. We know that children are on the phone, so we're trying to make it super convenient. So the parents who have children in our school sites will hear the word first, and then hopefully we will have more incentive for people to know about it, and it will get passed along. Eventually, we'd love to have parents begin to utilize the podcast as well, so that one of the ones in which we created was like at the grocery store with your child, picking out colors, naming colors in the car. So there's multiple opportunities to bring forth language, and this is just one way we can bring forth that idea. But the idea is to spark that interest in parents, and they don't have to listen. Like if they get inspired by a podcast and begin to have that sort of conversation with their parents, and then if another parent talks to another parent, just like everything else, word of mouth spreads, and hopefully it will, become a sensation with our younger
And
parents.
what's our plan to track that, to track whether people are actually?
I'm not sure how they track podcasts, so this is new ground for me, but I'm sure that with our communications and IT,
Yeah.
we can figure out if we indeed can.
That's great.
Maybe it'll go viral or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to
Podcasts
be
go viral.
intentional, so I
Yes.
think, coming up with a plan to
Very
track
good.
how it's
Very
being
good.
picked up. Yeah, no, that's great.
Thank you. Anybody else? Dr. Mike?
Then I'm wondering, how many languages do we have? I know when we have children who are born in 163 different countries. They're now attending school here in San Diego. And we also have something like 70 major languages that our students have. And when I was at the Crawford Hoover LCAP workshop, I think we had 7 or 8 tables, and we had translators there with different languages to help our families that are very limited English or non-English speaking. And I know that the card that we handed here is Spanish and English. So I'm wondering, in terms of practical, frequent working with our communities, how many languages are we working with on a day-to-day basis with parents?
I think that we normally do the English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Somali, and sometimes it's Korean, so it depends mostly on the neighborhood you're in. Pam, I'm not sure if...
Yeah, Crawford, we have a little bit more at
Right.
the Man Neighborhood Center, because I know they have the Karen, and we have more that we bring in, the Somali as well as
But what are we
Swahili.
doing with parents that don't speak those languages and are not English?
So I can tell you, when we had our celebration at the Neighborhood Center at Man, we actually had to bring in someone from the community, so we have community partners.
Okay.
And so we partnered with Karen, they brought someone from their community to come in to speak with those, to translate as we spoke about the different things that we had. So we bring the community members, someone that they're familiar with as well. And it just balance the relationship, just kind of make it more comfortable and a smooth relationship. And
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And we'll be following up, I'm sure, with getting additional information from you. Thank you for participating. At this time, I would like a motion to adopt the board consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Item F1. That was moved by Dr. Evans and seconded by Mr. Beiser. Okay, all in favor of that, motion, just vote on it, please. Okay, that's 5-0, thank you. Moving now to G1, we have the District Advisory Council, and we're going to put a 10-minute limit on this. Susie Reed, I believe that is.
Am I ready? Didn't want to keep you waiting, just wanted to let everybody get ready. Hi, I'm Susie Reed, I'm the DAC Chair. Good evening and Happy New Year to our board president and fellow board members and Superintendent Martin. I cannot see the thing. All right, so far DAC, we have lots of stuff happening, obviously, this year, but we've started the year with doing some emails out to schools that we didn't see last year or in the past several years. Emails went out to 86 schools, so we did start seeing some schools that we haven't seen before. So we saw about probably a dozen schools that we did not see last year or in the last couple of years. So I'm hoping that worked, that our emails have worked. We sent multiple emails and we kind of tackled by area according to each of our positions in the district, because we all our executive team comes from different areas and different clusters. So we, unfortunately, one of the problems with getting everybody to the DAC and getting timelines to flow right, I guess is the best way to say it. We generally have rosters that have to be turned in by the beginning of October, which means we're hoping that school sites are having their SSC meetings in September, or I'm sorry, their SSC elections in September. Unfortunately, this year, we did not get a full, we did not get everybody's rosters in on time. And so I think, and I commented there on working on training around SSC roles and responsibilities. We had, as Tom had explained, we had done some trainings and I believe it was like 6 different trainings, and they have done them cluster by cluster before. I know Dr. Whitehurst-Payne, you had mentioned that earlier. That did not have the best results as, say, having people come to a central location, but I think that there can be a lot of different ways of going about that, things we can do differently next year in order to tackle that a little bit better. But as far as training is concerned, we don't know who to train until we get the roster. So sometimes if we don't get valid rosters until December, which was very, very much the case this year, we don't have emails to send out, and trainings usually happen at the end of October, the beginning of November. So a couple of trainings actually ended up having to be canceled this year because of low turnout. So we're working on trying to implement more training at the DAC meetings. We do that to a certain extent, but we're really trying to do it a little bit more because we just didn't have the turnout for trainings this year that we wanted to see. And so we're still working on more outreach, hoping to get some emails out this month to some of the schools we haven't seen yet. We have schools that we haven't seen in like 3 or 4 years, and I have data going back that I can share with you. So I'm really concerned about those schools and how that's working. I've had teacher friends say, hey, would you come to a SSC meeting at my school site? Because I think we need to be doing something differently. I don't know if we're doing what we're doing right. So that's something obviously we're concerned about, but it's not everybody. There are a lot of schools that are working well and that are doing their thing. So we're just hoping to make sure that, with our low attendance, and I've been talking about that for the last couple of years, that's not really kicking us, kicking us in the rear, because we're not seeing as many people attend. So even those trainings we're embedding in the DAC meetings, they're not there to attend and not there to get that information. So we're trying to figure out a way to get more things. We do have some online training videos. We've got it's now the school plan for student achievement. We have a video on that. We also have a video that just got posted in November about the SSC roles and responsibilities. So we let everybody know last month about that, so we're just going to continue to let people know where that is online. We've connected the SSC page to the DAC page on the website. Yes, there were 2, so it was very hard to kind of figure out where everything was, but now hopefully everybody should have links to everything. This is our DAC executive team as of this year, and we've got representatives from different areas all over the district, and hoping to get more and add more to that this next month. We have very productive executive team meetings. They actually run a little overtime typically, but we've been having our presenters come before our actual meetings to give us a little rundown. Plus, they have to translate a presentation to you all, and usually it's a lot longer time limit than what we are able to give them. But we want to make sure that we're giving the SSC members that show up the stuff that's going to make sense to them, and that is also going to provide the best information for them to take back to their school sites and inform them what's going on in the district. So this year we had the Title I conference, the California Title I conference. It was in October. There were 3 of us board members that attended, as well as staff from the Financial Planning, Monitoring, and Accountability Office. We had some amazing keynote speakers, speakers focused on cultural awareness, empathy, and the concept of an extra backpack, that social emotional learning you guys are talking about. And Superintendent Martin Pedro Noguera says hello. I sat in on his breakout session, and it's just amazing. And I know he was part of that graduation team as well, so he's an amazing speaker. And there was a lot of a lot of speakers and a lot of administrators who are really encouraged to see so many parents show up, because there aren't very many of us who are willing to take the time off and do that. But there was also a huge focus on parent engagement there, and more specifically, meaningful parent engagement, and there was also that idea of quality teaching first. So I like to see that reflected here in the presentation earlier. We have Title I, of course. So this slide is a little different because I had to send in my presentation several weeks ago, and I just found out on Friday about the proposal for the supplemental Title I funds. And so I'm sad that we weren't able to get that information to our DAC members in December, and so the timeline, the budget timeline, the timeline of getting stuff from staff to the DAC is always a struggle, and we seem to struggle with it every year. But I think we're trying to work, and I know that Tom is working with us, and so are Mary and Dario in the FPMA office to try and get stuff to us as soon as we can, so we can actually be informed and make more informed decisions and make better recommendations, because it's kind of silly for the DAC to make a recommendation only to have a completely different proposal being put forward. So in January, we're going to be able to share that with everyone, but and I'm excited. I'm really excited, because I don't know if you were able to really share in your proposal, but the money that's going in supplementally is based on 6 different types of criteria. And for those students and for those schools that need more funding, and I even wrote it down, Title I, school meal eligible, English learner, chronically absent, homeless, low performing African American, or mental health resource services, that means we're giving more specifically targeted resources to schools, and that is what we have been asking for at the DAC. So I appreciate the FPMA office and finance and for you all to be listening to the DAC on that. And I think overall there is a general concern with the overall Title I dollar decrease, and when I say it that way, I mean that we have a changing demographic in San Diego. San Diego is an expensive place to live, so we have a lot of people who are moving out because it's just too expensive to live here. So our Title I percentage overall, which is determined by the census, that used to be at like 64%. Now we're down to 58% as a district for Title I. So I see that as a trend, and so that gives us some concern. And just with the I guess more of the it's a standard LCFF formula that's going, maybe we might need to push up those intervention dollars, just as an idea. What does that mean? 3 more minutes? 2 more minutes? Title I carryover trends. Our executive team wanted to see 3 years of carryover trends to see if we could see any trends. So there's some trends up there. I thought that was very interesting, so I made sure and attached that to the presentation so you all could see that. I think as a sociologist, I love to follow trends and statistics, and so being able to see where we could improve. And overall, honestly, 6.46% of Title I funds not being, not going spent is not bad compared to what it was about 8 years ago. So I'm really encouraged to see that, and I think that with being able to put more money at those school sites, and just with the additional, if we can provide that additional support, and the area superintendents, if they're going to be getting in there, I want to see more of it. Wow, that was fast. All right, so LCAP stuff, you guys have it up there. We want to see more LCAP stuff from the district, but we're putting it into the DAC meetings just to make it happen. And we're trying to build consensus, or at least there is already a consensus. I just want to stand here and say that I think the GATE DAC needs an opportunity to present to you. That is a stakeholder group and an entire group of students that are not getting heard. And so I'd like to just put that forward as my recommendation for them. And looking forward, more stuff, more training. And lots of changes with the ESSA state plan. I'm curious to see what the federal addendum is planned for, which I hope you guys know about. If you don't, I will be talking to you about it soon, because that's supposed to be attached to our attached to our state plan our consolidated application. Nobody talks about that anymore. But thank you. Any
And thank you
questions,
for
comments?
all of your work. We don't have any speakers, and
Sure.
Mr. White?
Definitely thank you for your work. I want to thank you and your leadership team for attending the Title I conference. So as you become more informed, you become able to monitor us and give us advice and also communicate with your DAC, as well as making sure the information gets downstream to our SSCs, and especially as we get more targeted money to our schools, it's a big, big plus. But what it's going to take is well-informed SAC members to help our principals in our schools make the right decisions, to provide the right services to the right kids at the right times.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mike.
thank you.
Good question.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you again for your report. I guess, there's always the talk about the attendance and the participation and so forth. And one statistic that would be interesting to me, and we have 86 out of maybe 120 some or more. How many Title I schools are there?
There's about 140.
140, okay. So what would be interesting to me would be what students they represent. It's sort of like the difference between the House of Representatives and the Senate, because I don't know, like, for example, high schools, Lincoln, Hoover, Morse, Crawford, are they currently attending?
They are underrepresented, I should say. High schools are underrepresented, but generally across the board, you really can't see a trend. It's amazing. I have tried, and I've been tracking the attendance over the last 5 years.
Well, and I understand there'd be some higher poverty and lower poverty schools, but the point would be, if there are some of these, I'm just using the high schools because being bigger and they have a larger number of students, 86 out of 140, whatever that is, 60%, say, of the schools, but that could represent 30% of the students.
Oh yeah, I can definitely get you that information.
Because that
I'd be
would be
curious
helpful
to
to know, because you might have very regular attendance from some of the lower poverty schools, and then so therefore it kind of affects the whole voting pattern and everything else, and it would just be helpful to know, I
Definitely.
guess, sort of statistically, and who is there and who's not there.
Well, in our higher poverty schools, generally the attendance is a lot lower. And so that's why the transportation is something that we're working on. And I'm so thankful, because it's an idea that Debbie Foster and Tom Lamberto and I have been, we've talked about before. So I'm really looking forward to being able to try and find some strategies of getting more people to the DAC.
Yeah.
It's good, because that was a topic of discussion last night at the Lincoln Cluster meeting. How is it that we can get more people involved and trained in voting and so forth? So, yes, maybe we can all work together on that. Are there any other board members? I do want to thank you.
I want to thank you for your help. And I Googled School Site Council YouTube video trainings, and there's a whole bunch. So that might be an opportunity or something for us to look at.
Oh, yeah. We got one from
potential way to help
Sacramento.
push it out to, and there's some from school districts all over California.
Right.
And they're on YouTube. They're free. And they're done.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And so
They don't mind
that
us
might
stealing.
be something to think about. I don't know. Maybe it'll work for us. Maybe it won't.
I like it.
So I think that's really, really important. And I really know how, I've gone to so many DAC meetings over the years, and I really, share your concern about attendance and figuring out. We've talked about this every time you come to the board to report. We're trying to figure out how to do it. We've talked about teleconferencing and all these other ways to people to participate. Live streaming on Facebook, maybe another way to get people, DAC members, to participate. But of course, the laws have not caught up with technology.
That's
And so
right.
people can't vote. But that's so 20th century, So hopefully we can partner with folks in Sacramento to kind of update and modernize our state laws regarding these kinds of oversight opportunities for parents and community members to get involved,
That'd be great.
so that they can still participate in a meaningful way.
That'd be
So
great.
thank you again for all your help.
Thank you all. Item G2, we will basically, it's about membership and reappointment to the California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly and to the San Diego County School Boards Association representatives.
I'll move item G2.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Beiser and a second from Mr. Barrera. Please vote on it.
I'll move item G3, Elevate Elementary School, action to renew the charter petition.
Okay, we have that motion on the floor. I know that, do we have any speakers on
Ryan Elliott?
G3? Yes, Ryan Elliott, and that's it. You here?
Good evening, Superintendent Martin, Board President Whitehurst Payne, excuse me. It's been a long night, hasn't it?
No.
Board Vice President Evans and trustees. I'm Ryan Elliott, founding principal of Elevate Elementary, and I know we've been here for a bit, so I'm going to keep my comments very brief. But I speak on behalf of our school team tonight, students, parents, and teachers, and saying thank you to district staff for putting forth a recommendation to approve our charter renewal, and to request that the board vote to approve so that we continue to serve and inspire students. We're proud of the work our community has engaged in together. It most certainly takes a village. As we've heard numerous times in numerous ways this evening. And we're also proud of the performance and growth of our student leaders. We're eager to continue this work in the years ahead as we collectively strive to create the conditions for every student to be excellent in academics, exceptional in leadership, and extraordinary in creativity. Thank you so much.
And thank you. If there's no more discussion from the board or any other speakers, let's vote on this. That passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And now we will move on. Thank you.
Second.
I have the motion here with Mr. Barrera and a second from Dr. McCrary. And with that, do we have any speakers?
Aaron
G4.
Thomas and Ryan Woodard.
Plus we have 2 additionals, Aaron Lofta and Margaret Anastasio. We have Aaron Thomas, Ryan Woodard, Aaron, another Aaron Lofta, it looks like Linda, okay, and then Margaret Anastasio. So any of the 4 just come forward. We'll give you 2 minutes each.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Martin. My name is Ryan Woodard. I'm the CEO and principal at Harriet Tubman Village Charter School. In my time here at Tubman, it has been a pleasure to serve the students and staff. I have the unique opportunity every day to work with wonderful people that care about the well-being of students in both a social, emotional, and academic environment. At Tubman, we work tirelessly every day to provide a wraparound service model that encompasses our vision. A sound mind and a sound body will lead to a sound future. Tonight, I ask that you approve our charter for another 5 years so we can continue to meet the needs of our students. Thank you, and I look forward to our successful partnership.
Thank you. Any speakers?
Board members, Superintendent Martin, my name is Aaron Landau. I am the president of the Harriet Tubman Village Charter School Board. I've been on the board since April 2016, and as you know, I came on the board as a community member at a time that the board was dysfunctional, and as a result, the school ended up not in good standing. I accepted the challenge along with other newly positioned board members and stakeholders to put the school back on a path of being in good standing. We are and have been back in good standing for over a year now as a result of what has been achieved in turning the school around. We are fiscally sound, have retained productive and positive employees, and have hired new certificated and classified employees of a similar ilk, and have mutually beneficial working relationship with the teachers union, proud SDEA members. Most important of all, students of a diverse background are being educated and incorporated into the American mosaic, and their parents are proud to see their kids shine. The school has been turned around for the positive due to a multitude of factors. It has been an uphill and successful turnaround, especially since July 2017 when the board hired Ryan Woodard as CEO principal. His energy, vision, and passion for Harriet Tubman Village Charter School is evident on a daily basis. The mood and culture on campus is harmonious, positive, productive, and vibrant. I see it every time I'm on campus as I am there regularly working with the Go Green team on the school's recycling project. in addition to my board responsibilities. I'm a fierce advocate for Harriet Tubman Village Charter School, the Tubman Tigers. I'm a proud Tubman Tiger. In summary, I ask you to please see fit to approve our charter renewal application so we can continue to do the good work on behalf of our students, parents, and community. Please allow Harriet Tubman Village Charter School to continue to be the shining educational beacon that indeed it is. With your vote of confidence and support, I assure you that we will continue to flourish. Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret Anastasio or Aaron Thomas? Otherwise, board members, any discussion? Please vote. And again, that passes 5-0. And that takes us to item G5.
Move the item.
Second.
Okay, we have the motion on the floor for G5 by Mr. Barrera and Mr. Beiser. And we do not have a speaker on G. Yes, citizen left. She withdrew. Okay. So we do not have a speaker for item G5. Any discussion? Please vote.
I'll move item G6.
That passes 5-0. And G6, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Beiser.
Oh, wait, did you want to?
And
That's okay.
it's an action item. Seconded by Dr. Evans. So with that, the update. This is your...
Okay. Yeah, this is an update on our clusters in the district. When we started on Vision 2020 several years ago, there were probably 3 or 4 clusters that were functioning throughout the district, and now we have in all 16 clusters to varying degrees of progress functioning throughout the district. I know back in 2010 we had an update and report on what was going on in different clusters, so we're just kind of updating it from that point. And one of our points is that all the clusters are very different from each other, and so we're going to have tonight, before we get to the action item, a brief presentation on a couple of clusters that are very different, one in the north and one in the south. And so starting off, President Whitehurst Payne has a video on the Lincoln cluster. But before that, you can see up here on the screen, this is the original language of Vision 2020 that called for development of clusters. And the basic idea was a high school and the middle school and elementary schools that feed into it. And if you look at school districts across the state of California, a cluster is certainly as big as many of the school districts across California. And when you put a few together, it's a very large district between our area superintendents, with the point being to promote the schools in the community, to improve the academics, and to have a democratic representation of the school community. We did not set up a lot of specific rules about how they operate, and we still don't want to, because these are more loosely organized grassroots organizations that are advocating for their communities in conjunction with the staff. So first of all, we're going to look at what has been going on at Lincoln.
I would like to just offer a thanks. This is a video clip of 4 of the programs that are operating in the Lincoln cluster as outside support, community supports for the schools. We'll talk about it a little afterwards.
What's going to keep you into the dissolving sauce? Water.
We all need to recognize that schools are not islands unto themselves, but they're a part of the community. So one of the things I've been promoting is to have community organizations, nonprofits, support what's going on at schools.
We'll send a bus to the school, and the kids are brought here, and they spend basically 5 to 6 hours with us 1 day a week for 5 weeks. So they get about 25 hours of hands-on science, and they rotate through 4 different labs every time they're here. So they may may spend an hour studying biology and they switch over to chemistry. Maybe they'll do some physics and then they'll do some computer science. So the most important thing we do is to help build in kids a STEM identity. We started a program earlier in 2018 called Girls Take Flight, and they're just wrapping that program up now, the first session, and these girls have gone through over 150 hours of instruction time. They've learned to build drones, repair drones, fly drones. In fact, some of them have already taken their FAA certification test, and they're FAA certified drone pilots. Some of them don't even have their driver's license. The girls, when they finish the program, will receive a $1,500 stipend, which will allow them to buy their own drone and start their own drone business if they choose. They could also get hired by a local company that uses drones. Drone pilots can make $50 an hour or more. And there are actually very few places like this across the entire country. So this resource right here in Southeast San Diego is an amazing place that can change kids' lives.
What we have done at DEEP is mobilize over 4 dozen partners to work with us in pursuit of 2 goals. One, making sure kids enter kindergarten ready to succeed, and making sure they finish 3rd grade reading proficiently. We bring arts programs into the summer program. So San Diego Arts for Learning, Fern Street Circus. So kids are dancing about the climate change that they're studying and reading about in class. Every Friday, we pride ourselves on taking them over to the Malcolm X Library. They all participate in the summer learning program, which is a library reading program. They then watch presentations that are being given, and our partners at the Malcolm X Library have made sure that those presentations reinforce the science themes that they're learning in the Earth Lab and in their classrooms. We couldn't do this without the support of the school district's Office of Extended Learning Opportunities. One of our partners that really touches all of our areas is the San Diego Council on Literacy. They provide us with books that we give to our parents for the early 1,000 Books Challenge, and they make it possible for us to provide every child in the summer program with 4 books, 1 every week, that they take home and read during the summer. So I'm really excited about what we're able to do all together for these kids.
We have an after-school program at the Earth Lab. It's basically focusing on the relationship of the natural world to the environmental design or makerspace world. And so we're working with designers from UCSD School of Engineering and makerspace experts and others to give our kids a direct hands-on experience in designing approaches to climate action problems. Currently, we're serving about 2,500 District E students, and they are in grades 3 through 8. One of the things happening today is one of the pillars of the Earth Lab, and that's called our Seeds of Science program, which is based on nationally acclaimed methodologies, including the National Science Foundation, to bring informal STEM learning to students in support of academic advancement and enrichment.
San Diego School of Creative and Performing Arts is a very special place. It is a one-of-a-kind school with a unique mission and vision. I work very deeply into building our curriculum, connecting our middle and high school programs so that they align. It truly changed my life when I received the VAPA Foundation grant last year. I have been studying classical ballet for 25 years. I perform professionally. I have a master's degree. I have studied dance pedagogy. But that grant allowed me to participate in the American Ballet Theater Teacher Training Program. I learned the national training curriculum that they teach their dancers at the school in New York. And now I'm so fortunate to be a certified teacher to train our dancers here with that curriculum, which is phenomenal. It produces phenomenal results. I believe in it wholeheartedly. The other ballet teacher here actually has already received her certification, so it's really helping us align our ballet curriculum, and we want to see all of our kids graduate from this school being audition ready for college programs or professional career pursuits in dance.
So that's just a general overview of what we're trying to do with our schools. Thank you all. That's a part of my vision, that rather than for people to always complain, but to really get involved in helping our schools in a way that impacts children on a daily basis, on a regular basis. That's why I, serve on the VAPA Foundation board, and we're raising monies, et cetera, so that those extra things with the grants, the teacher could do those kind of extra things. And on the web, I'm sure we have all the places where children or staff members are doing things with children or getting some additional training. And then with the other institutes and the lab, the Earth Lab and so forth, I am really excited because we're talking about enhancing the day for our children. At the Elementary Institute, rather than having a minimum day and for children to go home at 12 o'clock or whatever it is on that minimum day, they go over to the Elementary Institute and they actually train them for 5 to 6 hours during that period that they're there for the 5 weeks. And all of the schools, elementary schools in the Lincoln cluster will be going to that and participating in that. So we're thankful for them, for you working with them to get that moving. And we've got some more work to do with the Earth Lab to ensure that that's operational. DEEP is pushing off and getting a good start with a lot of partners. She said about 4 dozen partners, and they're all working together as a team to try to support schools. Pre-K, I mentioned that earlier, the fact that now we can identify children pre-K. So that's just a little bit about what's going on. I'm really thankful for our cluster chair, Roosevelt Blackman. He's done a fabulous job with bringing the cluster along, and I think we're on the path to really make a difference, to make some changes there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And that, this is a good illustration of, forming partnerships with the community for the benefit of the schools. And now to show another cluster, if we could ask John Golias to come up to the dais here to present a little bit about Claremont. And for this, one of the things is we don't have a big structure and rules and so forth in terms of how clusters operate. And so last year, the Claremont cluster decided to sort of look at how they were organized and how they could work more efficiently. And just to show the difference when I say the Claremont cluster, but every cluster actually creates its own name. In this case, it's the cluster, the Claremont Community of Schools. So, Mr. Golias, if you could kind of present this about what's going on there.
Sure. I'm just a proud member of the Claremont Community Schools. I'm a principal at Marston Middle School. My name is John Golias. And it's my 4th year in the district, and I've always been really excited about the trajectory of our cluster. And we've had huge gains in terms of academic achievement, student behavior, school climate. Can you push the button? Your mic's not on. Alrighty. Yeah. Just briefly, I'm really proud to be in the Claremont cluster. We've had really impressive gains in terms of student achievement and school climate. And we do have a positive outlook in terms of enrollment, too, which in this day and age is not a given. So we're really excited about the future. I'm just speaking specifically about the structure of our cluster meetings. So over the years, we've had good participation with good intentions, but our cluster meetings were lacking some of the structure that I think we needed to make them more efficient and beneficial. So some of these challenges I just have up here. The participants didn't have clear roles. We didn't have a real system for accepting agenda items. It was people emailing a group of people to see who could talk at whatever time. And we didn't have a system for creating the agenda, and we didn't really have any overt parameters on what would be discussed at our cluster meetings. So we used the last meeting of last school year to just let everyone have a chance to share what they thought, how could we make the cluster meetings more beneficial. Parents, community members, school staff all had a chance to weigh in. And so we walked away from that meeting with a good outline of what we would be doing for this year. And we've already had a chance to conduct a meeting and implement these new strategies. So these were some of the changes that we've had for this year. It's just that now there was a debate over, what's the parent role and who's actually running the meetings. And so we have basically a co-chair structure where there's one secondary principal who is a chair, and then the co-chair is a parent from one of the schools. And so we have, if you look further down, there's a parent liaison from each school, and then among those 7 schools, one of those parents is designated as a cluster parent liaison, or I can't remember the exact title, it's getting late, but a coordinator is the term. So cluster parent coordinator, and then we have the administrator. So this year I am the cluster administrator, and I work with one parent to just accept agenda items, outline the meetings, and allocate certain minutes for each requested presenter. So we also have a parliamentarian, a secretary, similar to some things you see in like SSC. So we did create also a clear purpose statement, and we do, in previous years, we've had periodic subcommittees and different goals and presentations. So this is the purpose statement we created, was just that we're assembling, we assemble staff, parents, and community members to discuss information that will ultimately improve the cluster's programs and presence in the community. And then we have parameters for things we would discuss and what not to discuss. When some of the feedback from parents was that if they are on one more committee or one more night to come to the school, they want to make sure it was beneficial. So we all talked about what is the content that's really going to bring parents to these meetings as well. And so we're talking about marketing, enrollment, district updates, changes in input. So when there is input needed for budget, for example, that's a great forum for that, and cluster events and business partners. And then on the right-hand column, you see some things that we've agreed that we would not make point of discussion at our meetings. So, and then we have a recurring agenda. So as we get agenda requests, we just plug them in. And so this is the order that we conduct our meetings. So really quickly, it's K-12 curricular alignment, marketing, neighborhood enrollment. It's very similar to what I was just saying, but updates, changes in input, cluster events, local business partner, submitted agenda items. So if they closely align with our purpose statement, we could add those in at that point in the meeting, and then round table if time's permitting. So that's just the structure, but happy to take any questions about our cluster in general.
Thank you. And could you say a little bit about some examples of some cluster events that have happened over the last few years?
Yes, we've had some amazing events. We've started at Marston doing 4th and 5th grade tours, so it was very typical to have just 5th graders come onto campus and see, but then through this dialogue, we really saw a benefit in having a separate tour for 4th graders. And so from our 5 feeder schools, all those students come on campus, and what was really cool is last school year, when I welcomed the 5th graders on the bus, I said, "Welcome to Marston." They said, "Well, yeah, we've been here before, we know." Yeah. And they felt really at home, so that was really great to see. But we have all the Marston students go to Claremont High School for multiple times a year for different orientations and team building activities, and they get to learn a lot of the academies and all the other great programs they have there. We've had sporting events that at Claremont High School. The Claremont High School students have been on the campuses of elementary schools. And there's different community events, too, that we've had with thinking of, we used to have Day at the Bay, and then we had the Claremont Family Day. I can't remember the exact title, but it's in August, and different things.
And there was, at the last question, could you explain about the camp? There's a camp over spring break for all the kids, and how that works?
So Mandy Diaz, the athletic director at Claremont High School, has done great work with students all throughout our cluster. So they do I believe it's their foundation that sponsors a free sports camp. They used to do it full week, but then they found it more beneficial to kind of include some weekdays, some weekends, weekend days for all students in the cluster to go get basically a free sports camp, and I believe they included cheerleading as well, with Claremont High School students serving as mentors and coaches, and it's been really well received, and it's still relatively new.
Yeah.
So.
And I noticed too, I mean, the cluster meeting, there's a real strong community feeling. A number of the parents, teachers, principals talked about having grown up in the cluster. Even the area superintendent graduated from the high school.
Yeah, that's true.
So, so I mean, there's a real community pride and feeling about it all.
It is, and I think speaking about Marston specifically, we've seen some of our 5th to 6th grade articulation rates go from below 50%. At some schools, it's now over 80%. So we are getting, there's so many benefits to having a school that has a higher concentration of neighborhood students. You hit this critical mass where because so many kids on the street are already going to Marston, then more kids are coming to Marston. There's kids on the same sports teams and Girl Scouts and all these different things. So it's more and more of a community feel. And then there's also a benefit, I think, to the cohesion, curricular cohesion. At the elementary schools, the elementary schools in our cluster are very tight. They do common professional development. And so our students are being exposed, our incoming students are being exposed to similar instructional strategies and programs. And so when they come to us, we're just able to see the benefit of that. Our recent classes are much different from the older classes that I've seen when I first got to Marston.
Yeah, and this very much fits with the whole purpose of the K-12 articulation, because I think in the past, each school kind of reported to the central office and they didn't necessarily coordinate as much with each other, and that's really improved.
Yes, there's a lot of collaborations. We meet almost monthly, the principals do in our cluster, to discuss different events and programs and ways to improve. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a couple of speakers.
Well, I still have some more.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
For presentation? Okay.
Sorry. And then we'll have the speakers. Okay, so thank you. You can go back. So the next is a very brief little presentation here. But it sort of fits with what we just heard and what President Whitehurst-Payne talked about in terms of some of the purpose of the cluster, to improve the academics in the cluster, to make sure it's aligned, the pathways, to develop partnerships with the community, and then as a result of all that, to be able to better market the neighborhood schools and increase the enrollment. So I'll just, is there a clicker somewhere? So I'll go through this. The first purpose that you will see, if I can figure out how to work this, see up here is, well, it's very small print, but it's to support the academic achievement of all the students, and particularly pathways. Different communities are interested in different types of emphasis, whether it's music or athletics, or even though we want comprehensive programs, there's special themes at different schools, and that's tied in with the community. And we really are emphasizing on this point here of the first purpose of really the importance of the area superintendent and the principals to lead the effort in terms of showing what they need, because obviously if the cluster of people are getting together without being really clear on the academic mission of the schools in the cluster, it's not going to be as integrated. So that is the first purpose, and then this, and I would say here, and I'll just add on one little note because someone pointed out to me, and because we're emphasizing about the leadership role of the area superintendent, the principals, but it says below, this goal is led by the area superintendent and the principals who inform the community and seek feedback, but adding into that another phrase which got left off, as well as input from the stakeholders regarding the community needs. So it's really a two-way street between the staff and the parents and the community. So we have to know what we're trying to accomplish in the cluster, and then we go to the next purpose, which is basically to partner with the local community. And we just heard all these great examples from Lincoln in terms of how they are partnered with various organizations to bring the resources, but not just saying, okay, we have a little fun thing here, a little fun thing there, but that's actually integrated with, developing literacy and STEM competency and all of that. And we've seen lots of examples of this, certainly in the Madison cluster, a lot of the partnerships. I mean, even one business person has paid for Friday night at the movies, and so they rotate between the different schools, an outdoor movie, and students can come and see the movie, and it's more integrated with the community. Another thing that happened using Madison as an example too is when there was a problem with losing students at the middle school level, and the fact that some of the schools were still going up to 6th grade, there was a community effort at grassroots level to say, let's fix this so we have our 6th grade at the middle school, and now we have a brand new facility. We have a program where they can go either to the art school, or they can go to the technical school, and then they can integrate from there on into the high school. And this is a result of the community, the staff, and the parents working together. Another example was in Mira Mesa when there was a new school, working rather than the district saying, okay, we're going to draw new boundaries. The community worked together on how do we balance out the schools, and how do we also make sure about the safety of the students, when they're going to school. So a lot of things like that. And then the third purpose then, after all of that, is to develop a cluster identity and promote and market the schools. And this obviously is a result of all the stuff that I just listed above. And right here you can see, as far as a guiding principle, it's basically what we said when we originally formed the clusters, to improve the quality of the neighborhood schools. But the whole point is each cluster council determines its own makeup and structure. We're not creating another bureaucracy. It's different in every community. We just ask that it be open to participation by everybody, administrators, classified, certificated students, parents, community members. And even about the meetings, I heard at one point that in some clusters they felt that they were obligated to have a meeting every month, and then they were just having a meeting to have a meeting, as opposed to they have a purpose for meeting. So they could decide we want to meet every week for a few weeks if there's something big going on, or they could meet twice a year. The whole point is not just to meet, but when we're trying to accomplish something in the cluster, then the meeting kind of follows in terms of what we do. So those are some of the basic points there. There's just a little note here, and this kind of fit with what Mr. Goliath said about this guiding principle about what the clusters are designed to address and not to address, because sometimes people get frustrated if they're addressing issues that they don't really have any decision-making power to do. And so, particularly if it's confidential personnel matters, there are various departments that can be addressed to in the district. And the other thing is about district-wide policies. So if someone is concerned about the sex education curriculum, for example, the point is to deal with the Board of Education. Each cluster, every area of the community has their own board representative, and they can certainly deal with the Board of Education, since that's not decided at the cluster level anyway. But the whole point of the cluster is to deal with those items that specifically affect them and what their needs are. And so the final point here is wrong button. Is just to keep this information public, to keep us all informed about what's going on in the clusters. We don't have to have another big meeting of the clusters getting together to say what's going on in the clusters. We have lots of ways with technology and just letting people know what's going on in the different clusters. So what we would like to do is at the beginning of each year, just have the area superintendent just do a brief report on what are the goals and purposes of that cluster for the year. So we all the board members have an idea of what's going on in the different clusters. It's also a good sort of sharing. We can, post this information so that people find out, hey, that's a pretty neat idea what they're doing in Point Loma. Maybe we can do that over here in the Henry cluster, and kind of sharing like that, because otherwise people just kind of isolate and don't know exactly what's going on. So it's still continuing with the same emphasis that we've had in terms of clusters, and it's just sort of clarifying some things that we have been learning over the last few years as far as the best ways to operate in the clusters. So that is what the motion is, and I'll stop there.
Thank you. And with that, we have two speakers. Another one then?
Yes, so 3.
Okay, so we have 3 speakers, and that would be Francine Maxwell, Susie Reed, and Michael Snyder. Thank you.
June of 2018, the area soup chart was realigned, and Dr. Sophia was placed over all high schools. If the principal supervisor does not oversee the cluster model does not work. And there is no way that Dr. Sophia is going to coordinate and attend all the cluster meetings. So clearly, this is just another attempt to shut down the community voices so that Superintendent Martin does not have to listen to the concerns. The cluster model that everybody has been attending definitely is different from cluster to cluster. But clusters are a place where parents can come and say what they're not being able to be heard from their campus. Like Morris, there's no ELAC. That's a problem. So they go to the cluster and they tell somebody, hey, where's our ELAC? Oh, it's supposed to fold into your SSC. Well, it hasn't. So there's a place. We had a whole school that came to the Morris cluster when I used to attend, and they were having Perry was having issues with special ed. They tried to stay on their campus with their issues at Perry. When they came to the cluster, it went to another level. Everything was fixed. Everything was turned around. Parent engagement blew up at the Morris cluster because they had an issue with their IEPs and special ed. So I didn't get a chance to finish writing, but because you guys like to push the green button, the paperwork that I have says, for example, the area soup and principals will lead the development of specific themes, programs, and pathways, and then inform the public and seek feedback. I didn't get to write the sentence that Dr. Evans said, but if the green buttons are pushed, then this is what's going to be. And so I needed to make sure that we're going to say that just real quickly, slowly, so we can all make sure we jot it down, even though I can go home and watch the recording, because that's pretty impactful right there. Because I just feel that, once again, she can't be everywhere, and the way that it's written, the district would serve clusters in a capacity. I know that the goal is to be like Mike. Where's Mike? Okay, because Mike Snyder, he showed us, he gave us the blueprint from the bottom up. It wasn't no top-bottom cluster that was built in Madison. So Mike has left us a legacy, and so I wanted to make sure that I thank Mike, because I don't get to interact as much as we used to. But Mike showed us and has laid the foundation to teach people how to go from the bottom up and not from the top down. So I just want to make sure that Dr. Evans rereads that sentence that I'm highlighting, for example, the area soup, because I want to make sure once them green buttons are pushed, that line is definitely in there.
Could I make a quick comment? First of all, in terms of, and I know I'm saying this, maybe the superintendent should say it, but as far as the area superintendents, when we made the change in having an area superintendent specializing in the high schools, we also made the point, and maybe that wasn't clear to everybody, that the area superintendent for that geographic area, Lincoln, Morris, Madison, wherever, is still the leader for that cluster and the coordination between all the schools in the cluster. The area superintendent for the high schools is an added support, specifically expertise in the high schools, and she will occasionally attend some cluster meetings if there's a specific high school issue going on, but we still have an area superintendent in each area, in each cluster that is responsible for that cluster. And as far as what Ms. Maxwell brought up about the sentence that was added, I checked with our board services officer, who assured me, since I didn't included that part of the sentence in there, that if it was entered into the record, that it would be corrected on the board document, and that what we approved would include the language that I said. And so I'll just read it. What's here, first of all, this goal, related to academic achievement and so forth, is led by the area superintendent and the principals, who inform the community and seek feedback, comma, as well as input from stakeholders regarding community needs. As well as input from stakeholders regarding community needs. So it's a two-way street. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me come here tonight, Dr. Evans. 18 years ago, I started this trek. I came out of my son's second grade classroom, and the principal said to me, Mr. Snyder, we're having a cluster meeting. You have to go. The idea was it was principal-led. The principals needed to bring in parents in order to get parent input. It meandered, it was lost, it got nowhere. We went to a parent-led group, back to a teacher-led group. When we sat down with the district and we sat down with the principals, the teachers, and the community, and my job was to bring the community to the table. So we built this. The district, and quite often in talking to the members of the board, will be asked, have we done enough to help? And have we gotten out of the way? And the answer to both questions actually was yes. When we needed something done, we as a community could speak to the school board, could speak to the district, and we could get things done. And at the same time, when we wanted to go our own direction, the board supported us. So if there's one thing I want to ask in this, allow for the opportunity here for real community input and dialogue. We've seen it happen in the Madison cluster. We had a meeting recently, and Dr. Evans was there, and one of the teachers spoke about, and I don't know how these principals and teachers, when they're in that room with us, can take this attitude of, we're members of the community, and they speak out. That's because we are there as a community to show them, teachers, principals, parents, community people, anyone who's in that room, this is our group. This is who we are. We're working together, community and schools together, in order to move. But it had to be grassroots. It started essentially with myself. There are so many now. The Day at the Bay came about because somebody came to us and said, Mike, we want to put on a 5K race for you. Fine, go ahead. And they did. That was the Claremont Hills Kiwanis. The Day at the Bay at its peak was over 10,000 strong, people coming, and we just used it as a way to showcase our schools. We're starting to see that even more now with community members coming forward. I had mentioned recently that we're looking at doing a education forum. What is the next 10 years going to look like in Claremont as a community? This was asked by the town council. They want to be involved. They want to be part of the solution. And they realized that what we have built was community. It was a community organization, everybody working in partnership. So I just wanted to remind all of you where we got there. I'll actually be at the Claremont cluster meeting on Thursday because Claremont and Madison, we work together. We're all one community, but it's not just that. We're also working with Point Loma, working with Scripps Ranch, working with Patrick Henry, working with Hoover. If we've got opportunities, we want to share them. This is coming from grassroots. This is coming from people in the community working with the schools, coming up with ideas, and expanding that to the rest of the district. So I believe this is a possibility. There are true benefits here that I don't think we even really know how far this can go. But I'm looking at this thinking this is what Madison did, because that's who Madison was. But we built it from the ground up in partnership. And I thank you for allowing us to do that. It has been an exciting 10 years as the cluster community, let's see, what am I? Oh, I'm the community co-chair of the Madison Community of Schools. And that's who we are. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service.
Susie Reed again. I've been involved in the Point Loma cluster since my kids started there, so going on 10 years, and served as the president for a couple years as well. And so what I see in Point Loma is not something that I see throughout the district. So I know that it's been a struggle trying to figure out how to organize some of the communities. But I think that trying to identify parent leaders in those communities is a help. I mean, obviously, Mike is a parent leader in his community, and look what impact he's had. Francine is a parent leader in her community, and she has had an impact. So I see all of these parent leaders who've had impact. You know who the parent leaders are, because they usually reach out to you guys. But I'm curious, do the area superintendents know? Because sometimes they're at our meetings and sometimes they're not. And so with the new high school and other school structure now, I would love to see Sophia at our meeting at least once, because she does take care of our high school. And so, yes, I know Bruce is doing his thing and they collaborate, but she's really going to be the one who's going to give us information on what's going on at the high school, or at least what the plan is, even if our principal isn't there. So I really want to see more area superintendent participation, especially with this. And I know the area superintendent's called out several times in the LCAP. They have their list of duties is growing. So I hope that they are able to fulfill all of those duties, or maybe we need to add more area superintendents. I know nobody wants to hear that. But I am curious about the public information, the sharing, how the communication gets out to the community. In Point Loma, it's all volunteer-based. We have like a constant contact thing that we pay for as a cluster in order to communicate with our cluster individuals, but that's really dependent upon who's the cluster chair at the moment. We haven't had emails go out in like a year. So I'm curious how the communication is getting. If the area soup and the principal are planning these things and they're bringing it to the cluster, how is it getting to the rest of the people in the cluster? Because I know that communication is always kind of one of those things that can get tripped up down the line, or it's like the game of operator. So I want to make sure that clusters are getting more communication, or at least there's something happening around that. And then more involvement with the community partners. I mean, I see how impactful it's been in Madison. I'd love to see that happen in Point Loma. If there's someone who we could talk to, I know there is, and I know his name, and I don't want to have to reach out to him myself, because at this point I'm still just a parent in the cluster, and I could get my cluster executive board and my cluster president to do that, but a lot of it is maybe not something that they want to be interested in, but it's something the community needs. So I'm wondering how that work is going to go, getting those business partnerships, or at least working with the principals to try to seek out those business partnerships, because parents are not necessarily going to be the ones who are going to drive that. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work, but I appreciate you putting this out, because I know we're getting there. 2020.
Thank you.
Let me just
Any discussion?
comment to that. I mean, the idea we're having is to have some information about what's going on in each cluster, so the others will find out about it. But the other point you brought up is about the communication within each cluster, and that really is up to the cluster as far as how they do it. In UC, they have an email blast that goes out, and it tells about activities in the cluster, and it tells about when is the next cluster meeting, and what's happening at that meeting. And so I think if there's some sharing between what the different clusters are doing, that would be a good way to have that happen. And again, the partnerships, it has to come out of what are you trying to academically accomplish, and then going out and finding the partners that can implement that. I mean, Mike has worked a lot with the 52 weeks of science. Other points was working with UCSD in terms of getting in there. But it's not just having someone come and do some little thing. It's integrated with what's going on, and that's why it is important for the area superintendents to be very involved in this too.
Just on that point, though, we have 16 high schools, I believe. So I don't think it's realistic that one person would be able to go to 16 different cluster meetings. That's why I really appreciate the partnering and the pairing. We have 2 instead of 1 for the high schools, and I still look upon the individuals, and they've all been there at my cluster meetings. Mike. Oh, wait, did we get speakers? Yes, you just finished. Okay. You're up. Dr. Mike.
I'm good. I think the cluster structure has a tremendous amount of value, and I've been an advocate for the cluster, and having clusters also to cluster in order to share good ideas. There are a number and our clusters are individually unique. As has been mentioned, each cluster develops, that has their own culture, their priorities, and I think we want to encourage the individuality of those. But there are some common practices that can be shared, and we can figure out a way, and maybe it's through the area superintendents, as they become more and more aware of what's working and what's effective within their cluster, if they could share it among the other clusters, some way of sharing more information to help our clusters learn from each other. I know in Subdistrict C, La Jolla and Point Loma and Mission Bay work closely together, and then they also share with Scripps Ranch. And there is an informal cluster sharing, and I think we can maybe develop a process by which our clusters can coordinate and communicate and network to share those best practices as well as to discuss common concerns.
Thank you. I would just like to point out that Acacia pointed out that she started using the marquees, I think, at school sites, and that we should utilize that more often because people have to drive through. They see them there. If we could advertise some of these things going on in the cluster, it would be helpful.
Every year, and here again, every year, U.S. News and World Report ranks the best high schools in the country, and we have 10 to 11 of our major high schools are always on that list. And if I sort of match those schools that are on that list with those schools that are highly developed clusters, there's almost a one-to-one correlation. So there is the vertical articulation that connects the elementary to the middle to the high school does have an impact on that high school in being successful. There is a community connection. There is the integration. It's the community with parents and students feeling a part of a purpose, and that then translates to a good achievement, problem solving, and outcomes that move these schools into to be recognized by a national U.S. News and World Report as being best high schools in the country.
Thank you. Would you all please vote? And that passes 5-0. Thank you for that item. H. I need to get through H1.
I'd like to make a motion to move H1, the resolution regarding the project stabilization agreement.
Second.
So we have the motion on the floor by Mr. Beiser and Mr. Barrera. Let's see, any presentation or discussion?
This is a fourth addendum to the PSA, and it incorporates the job order contracts to be covered by the PSA, and the amendments supported by and approved by the San Diego Building Trades Council and the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters, and the addendum is going to help us move forward with our contracts so we can provide the essential facilities upgrades that are underway for our students.
And we previously discussed this.
No discussion
It's a fourth
on it?
amendment.
So please vote. That passes 5-0. Thank you. And we move on to item I believe I-28.
I'd like to move I-28.
Second.
We have one speaker on it, Mrs. Francine Maxwell.
This was real smooth to be the very last, because back in September 2017, the board approved a contract, master scheduling software, 2 schools, Hoover, Roosevelt. The contract was for $0, as the company wanted to test the product on us and our students. Apparently, the product worked really good because Hoover Principal Jason said it was a game changer for the school leaders February 2018, and an advertisement for the product. So now, based on the principal's promotion, the district's now going to spend $60,000 to have the program implemented at 3 more schools at $20,000. And the item is so far tucked away in the agenda that it just made me laugh. And so I'm hoping that somebody's going to ask the question, did the district violate its own conflict of interest prohibition of advertising procedures by having district employees, Cheryl and Jason, publicly endorse this product in a magazine? In the board agenda, it claims the ABL was successful in master scheduling at Hoover. Where's the data? Where's the proof? Has anyone checked with the counselors, the students, the parents about the program? Were the schedules printed and ready for distribution before the school even started? Or did counselors have to change schedules by hand? Why is there a budget deficit and the district spending more money for yet another program to do something we already have a program to do? Power School is at every school site. Why are we using Always Be Learning on top of Power School for master scheduling? Hopefully, these questions will be asked and answered before the board once again does all its green lights. And I want to make sure that everybody is aware that magazine that came out, the Reader, a lot of it, things are true and untrue, but there was one falsity that your only employee talked about, was that a middle school teacher, a middle school principal couldn't transform the Hive. We had a principal that transformed the Hive. Her name was Dr. O. We have data that clearly shows you that Dr. O moved the needle at Lincoln, and so what your one employee did was a defamation of character to Dr. O, because she's the only principal that did a whole bunch in a short amount of time, but because of a past board trustee and the relationship that's with your one employee, Dr. O was left in the wind to have to leave the state to go do bigger and better things. So I want to make sure that we don't have to respond to everything, but there's some things that have to be corrected, and that's one thing that needed to be corrected. Lincoln was not built to fail. Lincoln is on great ground, and Lincoln will have challenges just like everybody else, but all students are brilliant. The community of southeastern San Diego is alive and well and has a rich history, and this too shall pass. And I look forward to 2019-2020 school year, making some things turn around, and hopefully, just hopefully with fingers and toes crossed, we get some major changes in staff.
Any discussion from the board? Question on this item? Please vote. 5-0. That passes, and that takes us to the public session.
Non-agenda?
Non-agenda public testimony, and we have one speaker, which, again, Citizens gone, but we have Francine Maxwell.
She might be
It's gone too. That ends our board meeting, and our next session will be on January the 22nd, 2019. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, how come?
Wow.